All right, everybody, we're live. Got another three-man edition of the world-renowned Fighting with Heat. We've got as usual co-host Luke and special guest again, Mr. Robert. How are you doing? How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. I'm glad to be back again, second time, and just chat and BS with you guys.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for this one. I mean, we were talking as we were getting ready here, and we were already getting into it. I think too much happening in the world of MMA. I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, let's just pick up that conversation, man. So we were talking about Tony Ferguson. He's looking for a fight. He wants the belt, but you said he was in Vegas negotiating, and you were speculating. Well, we were speculating maybe that it was going to be Cowboy, and I know you guys are excited at the prospect of that fight, but do you think that's realistic? You think Ferguson would come back to fight Cowboy, or what do you think?
I think Tony, what I'm saying, there's so many people in the lightweight division that deserve a title shot, if it be Cowboy, Tony, and also even Dustin now, you know what I'm saying? So I hope he doesn't really get on the train of waiting for a title fight because it's going to be a long wait. So I'm thinking that's what he's doing, asking for a title, but it's Tony. You know what I'm saying? If they're like, hey, dude, fight Justin Gaethje, he's going to be like, oh, fuck it, okay, good to go. So I think, honestly, he probably wanted to wait, but at the same time, I don't think he really cares. I think he just wants to get back in there.
Yeah, I'm curious what the UFC's thoughts are on the mental health situation because he didn't just go down with an injury and now he's back ready to go. This is something that's probably going to be something he has to keep tabs on his entire career. And yeah, he went to a doctor, and it's great that he's getting help, but it's a concern for sure. Especially this seems almost a little bit impulsive. That's almost why I thought maybe Cowboy Cerrone, because he did it kind of out of nowhere. Like, now we're going to go get a fight. What's making him suddenly so adamant about signing a fight and getting this done? So if the UFC's playing along, I think there are a lot of good options, and I think the sooner the better. Unfortunately, that means you're not fighting Khabib for the title, right? But he deserves it. That doesn't mean it's the best route for him to get to the title. I think that's the point, is the best route for him to get to the title is to whoop somebody else's ass. And there's a few guys out there, Gaethje, Ferguson, or Cerrone, and then, of course, lingering in the shadows, Conor McGregor. Nobody really knows what's going on there. So I would love to hear that he got a fight booked. I'm just, I guess I'm not holding my breath because there's too much going on, I think, in the division.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that because the thing is, because people don't know this, the UFC knew about his mental health issues, way before it actually kind of exploded to the whole thing of his wife and stuff. This has been an ongoing thing that we weren't really aware of. So, but now it makes sense on why Tony never really got the big title fights, you know what I'm saying? But he kept on, because we were saying he deserves a title fight, he deserves a title fight, but he kept on getting these other fights. So I'm wondering, what you were saying, if this is a kind of a jump in of him, okay, I'm good to go because he saw a Donald fight. Because if he's not ready, the UFC ain't going to be like, okay, we're not going to give a guy with mental health issues a chance to be a champion, because how might that look for the sport? So I think that's a big reason why they pushed it off so long and then it exploded. So I'm wondering if he's better than that or is he kind of back to the same stage?
Man, that was a whole other can of worms when you look at the mental health aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
But, talking about the lightweight division, that does allow us to translate into what we have planned. We're going to talk a little bit about UFC Ottawa. I mean, I know you guys didn't catch the whole card. Then we got to talk about UFC 237. That's going to be the primary focus of the show. And then talk a little bit about Bellator 221. We got good co-main and main event there that we're going to discuss. But let's talk about Cerrone and Al Iaquinta, man. Donald Cerrone pretty much dominated Al Iaquinta for the better part of 25 minutes on Saturday night. Well, what did you guys think watching it? Cerrone was really on point with his boxing and kickboxing, and Al didn't really have any good moments. I mean, he hit a couple shots here and there, but then Donald came back with some combos every time Al hit him. So, I mean, what did you guys think?
The first thing I noticed was, where the fuck did this chin of Cowboy come from? That's the first thing I noticed, because the first round, I think Al did hit him with some big shots. I was like, oh no! I would say this is the first time I've been so happy to be wrong in a fight prediction. It's the happiest I've ever been. So, but it looked like at the beginning because Al hit him with a good combo, and I was like, oh, here's the boxing. Here we go. But then Donald just nope, good to go. I'm gonna keep on trucking forward, and I was just like, heck yeah. So that's the biggest thing for me is where this chin come from. Donald's taking bombs now because Iaquinta, he didn't really win any engagements, but he did still land big strikes, which it seemed like 3 or 4 fights ago, 4 or 5, about 4 fights in back, it would have knocked him out. You know what I'm saying? So it just seems like it's crazy. And Donald even made a comment on it saying that old Donald Cerrone would have gave up in that fight. So I think I think this dad Cerrone is actually a real thing. I think we all saw it. But it was impressive. Donald looked amazing everywhere it went. You know, he had Al shooting for takedowns on Cowboy. Like, you don't see Al shooting for takedowns. That's how you know how desperate Al was. So anything with Cowboy, I'm just impressed. I'm never going against him again, even if it's against Khabib, because this Cowboy is scary.
Yeah, I think far and away the story of the night, the story of the fight was Donald Cerrone, Dad Cerrone, a new man. Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of the important things we're starting to see emerge with Donald Cerrone, and this is a pretty cool story. Like, this journeyman who's always been a fan favorite, this wild man who, you know, he goes scuba diving, skydiving, any kind of diving, and sometimes in some of his fights it looked like maybe he's taking a dive a bit. Every time he was in these big fights, he'd get hurt. He'd be up against these freak athletes, get kicked in the belly, whatever it is. He'd kind of go down. And I think it was Conor McGregor actually who pointed this out one time, that you're just not there to fight. You're there to take a fight. And then as soon as you're up against some adversity, you give in, and that preserves your career. You go through less wars, and your fights that you lose aren't as damaging to your body, but it's not a great look. And I think it also speaks to the mentality he had. And they talked a lot in the pre-fight and post-fight about how scared Donald Cerrone used to be in getting into these fights. He's still doing it, I guess, but he's a completely different person. The aggression, the cocksuredness, I guess is a good word for it. It shows not just like in the fact that he's able to take a punch and keep going. It shows in the way he throws. He's throwing these FU punches that are meant to hurt people. I mean, his jab was dropping Ally Quintus. So yeah, he's a new man. We've made it probably 20 minutes, not even into the podcast. I'm gonna throw out the steroid accusation real quick. I think he's on some special juice here because
maybe he's been hanging out with TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah, I do. I think. I think they're all on steroids, right? The Nate Diaz school, but Legacy's not a fan of it. No, the chin coming back out of nowhere. We've seen that in guys who started juicing up again.
Oh, I know. I get
the physical strength and speed he's moving with. I think he's dabbling, but there's no proof or whatever. He'll get tested by USADA. He's in the same testing pool as everyone else. But I guess my point with that is I think physically he's more able to compete with the best of the best than he's ever been able to before. He looks better than ever. So I'm excited to see where it goes. It is an awesome story, but yeah, you know my thoughts on it.
Oh man, yeah. So I'm looking at the scorecard here. The way this fight was scored, Iaquinta was given round 2. All of the rounds were given to Cerrone, and 2 judges actually had Cerrone for 10-8 rounds. Hey, love a good run-in. It's okay.
Little cameo appearance.
It happens to me all the time. So, now we already talked a little bit about what's next for Cerrone. He's looking at he wants Conor actually. He said, did you guys see the post-fight interview?
Yep.
Yeah, so he wants Conor again. Do you think it's a lost cause, him calling out Conor McGregor, or like is it smart at this point? I mean, he was kind of thrust into it because he was pressured by the guys that do the post show. But I mean, what do you think either way?
Go ahead, Liver.
I think it's not so much about what Cowboy wants; it's about what Conor wants, right? That's the ultimate. Whatever Conor wants for a fight, short of maybe a Khabib fight. Khabib's pretty much the only fight that Conor could ask for and wouldn't be guaranteed to get. Every other fight, they're like, yeah, definitely. The issue that they ran into last time with the 5-round fight or the 3-round fight or main eventing a pay-per-view or a fight night, like, I think that especially we mentioned the pay-per-view numbers getting ready for this show. The last pay-per-view on ESPN Plus did not do great numbers. If they put Conor McGregor main eventing a pay-per-view, it's gonna do good numbers, and it'll kind of introduce a lot of people into this new pay-per-view process. So I think Conor's really just holding all the cards in this situation. And yeah, maybe it'll be the Cerrone fight, but I think it's more likely we see him fight, Dustin Poirier for the interim title or something along those lines. I just think that they're gonna have a hard time making Cerrone McGregor a main event with already 2 other UFC lightweight belts out there. They can't make a new one for those guys. It's just matchup I see happening, but it would be a fun one.
No, I agree that it would be a heck of a fun. I don't think at this point, Connor's a really guy to like. If someone calls him out, he's going to say something right away. I mean, has Connor said anything on the call out yet? Like, have we heard anything?
I didn't see anything. I don't believe he responded.
Exactly. So the fact that he didn't respond really tells me that Connor's probably not that interested in it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like even when Nate Diaz said something about like you took everything I worked for, it's like Connor was on that already. You know what I'm saying? Talking shit back and everything. I don't think he wants anything to do with Cowboy. I think he just wants. Don't get me wrong, that's a big fight. But Connor also, he's a smart guy. So he's going to look at this fight of like, if I take this fight, I need something out of it. You know what I'm saying? He beats Cowboy. I think a lot of us are going to be like, well, it's Conor McGregor. You know what I'm saying? So I don't like. So like a fight versus Tony Connor. And that's a fight where it's like, oh fuck, he beat Tony Ferguson. You know what I'm saying? I just think Connor's going to wait until he finds the perfect matchup for him when it helps him in every realm. You know what I'm saying? Like he lost to Khabib, but all of us went like, oh shit, it's Khabib though. You know what I'm saying? Half of us have low key expected it. He loses the Cowboy though. It's like, oh, fuck, dude, like you're not in it anymore. You know what I'm saying? So I think he's just being a smart guy. He's not going to take this fight. He's going to wait for a bigger fight with a bigger name.
Yeah. To your point, the first time Cowboy called out McGregor, well, not the first time, but in Cowboy's fight before this one, was it the Mike Perry fight? I believe it.
No, I can't remember. It was after the Hernandez fight.
The Hernandez fight, yes, exactly. When he called out McGregor responded immediately. So the fact that we're getting radio silence now, I think that does speak volumes.
And what do you guys think is next for Ally Aquina after this?
It's a tough one. I mean, like we said, the story is Donald Cerrone, and people are always going to talk about this fight as Donald Cerrone looked really good, but Al didn't look that good. I kind of think he might have been a little concussed pretty early on, honestly, because he was throwing bombs, but he just didn't seem to have the same snap that he does. And we've seen that in guys before where they get hurt early in a fight and they just are never really there. Whether or not that's the case in this one, he hung in there tough, ate some big shots. He's always had a great chin. He's a little undersized at lightweight, and this fight really brought it out. I would be interested in hearing if he's ever thought about moving down a weight class, but I don't think he needs to. I think he's a top, 5 or 6 lightweight, especially in the right matchup. He wins a lot of fun fights. I hope they book something fun for him, so something where both guys are going to throw down and brawl. I don't know who that would be. There's obviously a lot of options for that at lightweight. There's a handful of guys that I think that, like, Ally Aquinta could beat them and move up the rankings, or lose to them and not really fall too far. And I think that's a good spot for him because he just got his kind of big break with that win over Kevin Lee. So it would be disappointing to see him fall out of kind of that top contender grouping.
Maybe a guy like Paul Felder would be good.
That's who I was thinking, yes. But yeah, I agree with everything you said, Luber. I think if he did decide to go down, I don't think there's a lot of challenges for him if he goes down to 145. Because he's at that point, he's going to be a nice size 145 pounder. You know what I'm saying? Of course, you got Frankie and Aldo and Alexander you have to worry about. But against all the other guys, I think Al does fine against Brian Ortega even. You know what I'm saying? In that case. But when it comes to the 155 pound division, like what you were saying, I think we're going to see Al rise up to the ranks, and then I think we're going to start seeing him drop back down slowly. That's kind of what I see. But because they're not going to give anyone above Donald. They're not going to give him a Tony Ferguson or a Conor McGregor or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So he's going to fight someone that's top 5 or below. Maybe a Justin Gaethje fight. But that's dangerous for Al too because that's going to drop him down more. So I do like the Paul Felder fight more than anything. That's the fight I want to see. Other than that, Kevin Lee's going up. So I think it's going to be 3 people, either Paul, Edson Barboza, or Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, I think
the Gaethje fight came to my mind when I was talking about it too, and I just actually thought about it while you talked about 145 before I forget, because this is a fun thing that we at some point should talk about is Ortega and Zabit Magomedsharipov got booked apparently for a future date. So yeah, that 145 division, they do have some killers definitely, but I would love to see Ally Aquinta in the mix there. Either way.
Let me see what the target is for that Zabit fight.
Yeah, I think it was like 240 or 241, like far enough out that they don't even know where the venue is. I just saw it today come up. So
was it more of like a verbal agreement then?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah.
Oh yeah. There's nothing there for dates, but yeah. What was there anything else on this card from Ottawa that you guys wanted to talk about? I mean, we saw Derek Brunson get a win, and we saw Shane Burgos defeat Cub Swanson. I know one thing that stuck out to me was that Elias Theodorou, man, he looked really out of shape. Did you guys see it? Did you guys see that fight?
You talk about that one?
You got it.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know. I remembered you mentioned there was a couple fights you didn't quite see. I'd never been a fan of watching Elias Theodorou's fights. He moves backwards, throws kicks to score points, not do damage. So I watched this fight. I didn't pay the closest attention because I saw what I kind of expected is Derek Brunson being the better athlete, throwing with a lot more power and threatening with his wrestling. And he actually got a lot of credit for it, being a smarter fighter growing up. I guess he's a dad now too. It was a good night for new dads, because he said he needed to fight smarter because of his responsibility to provide for his family, which is kind of cool to see play out twice in a night, especially Derek Brunson. He's always been such a wild man fighter. I think it's a good sign that maybe he's turning his thing around, but Elias Theodorou, I think you can expect this. He's not the best athlete. As far as being in shape, not being in shape, maybe he is declining a little bit. Maybe he's not training as hard as he should. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's ever going to blow anybody away with his athleticism. He's just somebody, a real nice piece of hair, and somebody who knows how to effectively fight moving backwards. So.
Oh my god. Okay, well, let's move on to Bellator. We're gonna talk a little Bellator.
If you don't mind, real quick, there was two things that I thought were worth pointing out. Walt Harris won in 50 seconds.
Oh yeah.
He literally threw punches the entire time. Just looked terrifying.
That was tough to watch.
Yeah. I think we should keep an eye on him in the heavyweight division because he's always had the phisical talent, but like it just seemed like he couldn't put together. But it seemed like he put some stuff together for this one.
What
so
was
he
the
looked
guy's
really
name
good.
That he fought? What was his name?
Sergey
Spivich.
Man,
Okay.
he looked he looked like he did not want to be there. That was tough, man.
No.
I didn't want him to be there either. I felt bad for him. We could have just had Walt Harris shadowbox for 50 seconds. That would have been same impressive performance without the harm done.
Yeah, it looked really similar to the Greg Hardy fight, honestly, in my opinion. So just like one guy sitting there, I'm going to throw bombs. I just want out. I'm done.
Yep. And then there was Matt Sales who fought on the undercard and won via arm triangle choke. I thought he didn't look like the most physically intimidating dude, but he moves so good. I think he trains with Dominic Cruz. So his footwork on point, his counter striking on point, his grappling was on strike, and he was a smaller guy and he looked great. So super impressive.
Yeah, and that fight was really good because, everyone was like, where Matt Sales is going to win is on the feet, and he ends up submitting the guy, which that's crazy. Like, Matt Sales had himself in pretty bad situation. I was like, fuck, Sales, you're kind of throwing this away, dude. But he pulled out that triangle. It was just awesome, which I'm glad. If you don't mind, I got two fights I was kind of happy with. Big one for me, Macy. She finally broke into the top 15. I mean, I was sitting here like, okay, Macy's going to win. Then she charged Sarah, and Sarah just took her down right away and controlled it for a little bit. I was like, what the flip is going on?
It was so cheeky, that takedown right away.
It was. And then she tried it again in the second round, and Macy's like, nope. So I thought that was good. Macy finally broke into the top 15, which is awesome. Another thing, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mitch Gagnon. When he left, he was in the top. He was in top 7 of the bantamweight division, something like that. He was ranked pretty good. I was really excited to see him come back after his layoffs and stuff like that. But we see that I do believe I haven't done it, but just watching, I believe Octagon Rust is a real thing, and I think we really saw it against someone like Cole Smith. Like there's guys that Mitch beat that's still ranked in the bantamweight division. But he just came back and couldn't do it against Cole Smith. So I think that was good. That's what stood out to me was those two fights, other than Adonis Cerrone.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I think the Mitch Gagnon fight showed, ring rust, but also the progression of the sport. Younger fighters coming up and competing with guys at levels that they, even if Mitch Gagnon was the same fighter he was 3 years ago, you can't be the same fighter you were 3 years ago. Exactly. You got to be moving up and progressing. And Who knows? Maybe he does shake it off and come back. But yeah, Cole Smith looked very good as well. So
He did.
That's a super long layoff though, man. 2.5 years.
Yep.
That's
You know,
tough.
both ACLs gone, and then he had 2 children born and stuff like that. So
Wow.
you know, it's not so much the fact that he was out but still focused on fighting. He was out and had other things to focus on. Like he said when he was out, he was just focused on his kids, you know, which is awesome and stuff. But I think when you see that a lot, like they come back like this, you know, then you got people like Dominic Cruz, who's also out for years, but they're still focused on fighting when they're out. And you see the difference on how they come back.
I think Dominic Cruz is afforded that by his name power, where he'll always have a job as an analyst too. You know, I think part of that
Yeah.
that it is his job to watch the fights, and I think that's part of it. But I mean, it's not all of it, and you know, but of course, it's still a factor. Yeah. So, was there anything else that you guys had from that card? Any other fights that really stood out?
That's about
Shane
it.
Burgos looked good. I don't think there's much
Oh,
more
yeah.
we need to say about it. Win over Cub Swanson, super solid. He's a large featherweight. He is a prospect. He's going to climb up. So we'll talk about him before his next fight, I'm sure. But he looked good.
Do you think Cub Swanson looked pretty good though? You know, one judge had put him in like as the winner of the fight. So do you guys think that he potentially could have won the fight?
I was because I rewatched this one. I was a little surprised that the judge did give it to him. Honestly, you know they're very similar on the stats wise, but to me, I was just focusing on Shane the entire time. That's kind of how I saw it. So I was a little surprised. I watched it and I was like, okay, I guess good to go. But you know, it is what it is. I predicted it. I thought Shane Burks was going to win, so this is not a surprise to me. So
Yeah, you're
Shane
rooting for him.
Burgos. So, I'm a little surprised the judge gave it to him, but whatever. He still won.
Yeah, it was a weird one where it was 30-27 Cub Swanson, and the next judge had it 30-27 Shane Burgos. I think there is justification to give any round to Cub Swanson, but I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I would have been maybe a little bit upset if the Cub Swanson had come away with the win, but we could talk for days about how bad judging is, how good judging is, how hard judging is. It's not an easy, precise thing, but yeah, I mean, Cub hung in there tough. He's still got fight in him, so we'll see Cub back in the UFC fighting somebody, and we'll see what he could do against maybe a lesser prospect or somebody like that.
Well, you know what they say, bro. We just take the gloves off. So we just take the gloves off, and we won't need judges.
Okay, Joe Rogan.
All right.
Well, let's talk Bellator. But before we do, though, I think we should talk about the PFL. It's returning tonight on we got women's lightweight and welterweight. Did you guys know that Kayla Harrison used to train with Ronda Rousey? PFL will not let you forget it.
Do they constantly remind you?
Yes.
I guess I could have figured that, right? I knew they were both on the judo team at the same time. It's kind of cool to see Kayla Harrison. I've compared Ronda Rousey to like the Hoist Gracie of women's MMA, and this is kind of like your first like. Now, okay, we've had our introduction. Now women know how to train for judo, jiu-jitsu. They're not just going to get submitted. But Kayla Harrison's like the next level of athlete where she's not just knowledgeable in jiu-jitsu and ahead of everybody. She's also a better athlete. So it'll be super interesting, especially because it is this women's 155 division. I mean, they have a hard time filling out a 145 division in UFC. So we'll see what kind of competition they bring in for her.
Yeah, I'm curious how that's gonna work. The first time I saw her was actually on an episode of Impractical Jokers, like a few years back, and I was like, "Damn, this girl is huge! My God, like that's a big girl." But well, what do you guys think of the PFL as a concept? You know, where it's treated like a real sport. Their whole thing is, you know, this is not about promoters booking big money fights. This is about seeing who truly is the best at every division. You know, so they're in the interest of true competition with standings, playoff brackets, and of course, I believe between the quarterfinal and the semifinal, some fighters will have to fight twice in one night. Are you proponents of that, having fighters fight twice in one night?
I think in my opinion, the more that we're figuring out about fight damage and everything like that, I'm not the biggest fan about it. I mean, look at all the Pride fighters that used to do tournament fights. You know, how many of them other than Fedor are walking around just fine? I mean, like look at what's his name? Flippin' Silva, Vandalay. He's messed up right now. So the idea is cool, don't get me wrong. Like if UFC did it, I'd still watch the crap out of it. But when it comes to the health of the fighters, I don't like the idea of it, honestly.
Yeah, I love it. Just bleed, all that good stuff.
Oh God.
I think you have like added storylines, like this fighter, his knees all messed up from the last fight. Is he still going to be able to go out there and do his thing? But that also leads to bad fights sometimes. Sometimes one guy's just not ready, and the other guy, got a quick win, or one guy like basically got knocked out, and now he's fighting again. Another thing that more common than that is a fighter just has to straight drop out of the tournament because of injury in between fights. So it's super cool. It's a lot of fun, but there are a lot of drawbacks. That aspect alone, the 2 fights in a night, I probably, I like it, but I don't think it's, the most practical thing.
Yep.
When you put it in there with everything else they're trying to do, I'll legitimize MMA, make it a real sport. I think it's wolf tickets, man. I think it's telling fans this is what you want, right? You want a legitimate sport. But then what we're going to get is, they're handpicking the entrance into these tournaments. They're picking people that they think that people are going to want to watch or have name value. It's not like it's a 1,000-player, pool of fighters, and we're finding out who wins out of that. It's who's winning out of this group that we selected. So right. I don't really get super hyped for the PFL, but more fights the merrier. At least people are investing money into this thing. $1 million prize for the winners is pretty nice. I like seeing them get that kind of money. So yeah, it's good that it's happening, but I'm not jumping out of my seat going crazy about this new format.
And another thing too is they're essentially, like you said, they're picking fighters out of a pool. They're essentially hitching their wagon to someone that they refer to as Ronda Rousey's friend. So it's always interesting. But
yep. Honestly, if they want to if they're talking about the whole, finding the best fighter, no promoting, just, putting the best against the best, I think the best way to look at that is one championship. You know what I'm saying? That's the one where Alvarez and DJ just went to, right?
Yep.
Think about it. They could have easily just gave Alvarez and DJ an easy fight as they came in to build their name. They didn't care. They gave them both killers. DJ struggled in his first fight. He won, but he still struggled a lot. I think that's the best format to go at it. I'm saying don't handpick it. They don't care who you are. You're going to fight the best, and if you lose, too bad, dude. I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, and there's also if you have somebody that just went through a 5-round or a 3-round war, and then they're going in, they have to fight again in an hour. Man, what if you get knocked out? Do you truly see who is the best then? If you have someone that finishes, you have a guy that finishes somebody in 35 seconds into the first round, facing a guy who just came out of a 15-minute war, who's bloodied up and beat up, and then it's how can you really tell who is the better fighter there when you have unfair circumstances? But I guess the elite will rise to the top, right?
You know how you tell who the best is you take the camera and you pan out and you try to find some UFC champions in the crowd. See if they're wearing that belt. That's how you find out who the best are at a PFL event.
Yeah. It's interesting, man, because I think even with the Bellator tournaments and stuff like that, it's I find when we found out Roy McDonald was fighting in a month, you know what I'm saying? I even was sitting there he only has a month, you know what I'm saying? Roy didn't get hit a lot, but, he still took damage and everything. I'm sitting there, he only has a month to recover and get ready again. Even at that, I was that's not a lot of time. But they're talking about, hey, you won, almost got knocked out. Don't worry, 45 minutes, you got to get back in there with a killer, bro. You got this. To me, that's just kind of it's dangerous. That's exactly what I think it is. It's just dangerous.
Good way to promote a fighter, though, because people remember those kind of performances, and it makes stars just by having tournament winners. That's Pride FC definitely when they ran their Grand Prix is about let's find a star, and then once we get this star, then we'll start handpicking fights from and stuff like that. One interesting thing about the PFL is that it has this kind of incestuous relationship with the UFC. They testified in the UFC's being sued for being a monopoly, and they testified saying, no, we're a competitive organization. We don't see them as a monopoly. We see them as competition, and so this lawsuit shouldn't stand. We've seen fighters like Rumble Johnson. He got told go fight for the. It wasn't the PFL at the time. It was, I forget what it was called. Same organization. Yeah, exactly. And he went over there, had a few fights, came back to the UFC. I think they told Ben Askren the same thing. They said, "Hey, we want you sign a contract with these guys, and then come fight for us after 1 or 2 fights." I think it is that UFC uses them as a side promotion. Like they try to build stars through this tournament format and then maybe sign them if they get enough heat. I don't know. It's kind of strange what's going on there.
I mean, I think they just kind of do the same thing like the WWE does. You know what I'm saying? I think WWE wrestling, they just have their eyes on certain other small organizations, and they kind of handpick them from there. Because I think I remember this one time, Big Show, he was in WWE for a while, and then he got cut because of him being lazy or something like that. And they are like, hey, bro, these guys are going to take you for a little bit because they literally sold his contract, you know? So I think that might be something that they're doing. Like, I think that's the way I see UFC doing it. Just handpick it, and then it's like, kind of like, well, you're not doing a good job. You're going over there for a little bit, and if you don't get better, we're not going to take you back.
Yeah, it sounds similar to the relationship they had with ECW, where they were like paying ECW's bills and keeping them afloat. And then whenever it's like, oh, this guy signed to WWE now. Oh, well, big shock.
Right.
Speaking of WWE, good way to transition. The gentleman formerly known as Jack Swagger, aka Jake Hager, is going to be fighting, and I think Ben Askren summed it up perfectly on his Instagram post. If you get a second, Robert, check it out. If you follow Ben Askren on Instagram, yep, he's doing it right now. It was I know you've seen it, Luke, but they pretty much summed up Mr. Hager's opponent, T.J. Jones, and I'm glad he said it though. So it'll have some validity, you know, coming from someone like Ben Askren. Speaking of Ben Askren, did you guys see him get wrecked at that wrestling match that he had?
Oh gosh.
I wasn't surprised one bit. I know who Jordan Burroughs is. I've seen Jordan Burroughs
wrestle. He's a badass, man.
Yeah, he after that, Dana White's like, hey, let's get him in the UFC. Like, yeah, he is an absolute monster, a complete freak of nature. Ben Askren. And in the sport of wrestling, there aren't a lot of upsets, especially at the highest level. You kind of know who's who and what they can do. So it was all for charity. I think Ben knew what would happen going into it.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. You know, Ben had no animosity at all going into it or even afterwards. I mean, shit, they did the post fight thing together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, they were just in there having fun. I think Ben knew what was going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like Luberson, there's levels. You know, they know those levels. They're just doing it for charity. Exactly.
Oh, yeah, so were you able to find that post?
Oh, God. Who the fuck let the fan in there? Oh, God. What the hell, bro? He looks like he's like my neighbor who used to be a truck driver.
Yep, he's the everyman. Just imagine if that guy beats Jake Hager. He's going to be crawling back to WWE. Like, can I get a job, please? Yeah, so Jake Hager is getting a seemingly what do you call it, a tomato can? He's getting a tomato can for him Saturday night. What do you guys think of that whole prospect of giving a formerly well-known professional wrestler or whatever, you know, whoever it is, professional football player, whatever, an easy fight? I know we talked about it a little bit, but what do you think? What do you think that Bellator can gain from this? Like, do you think Jake Hager's a big enough star that he'll really benefit from looking good in like a really bad fight?
I think so, honestly. You know, because there's, believe it or not, there's a lot of wrestling fans who also follow MMA. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I think the fact people are just happy to exactly. I think people are just happy to see him fight. You know, and it's like the big thing. Is they're just trying to, I think what they're doing, they did in the last one, they're just trying to match him up with records, you know what I'm saying? Which I get it, it's smart, but the other way you look at it is like, this dude was literally one of the best wrestlers. Who the fuck is this guy? You know what I'm saying? So, it's a little different than the Greg Hardy situation, honestly, you know, because Greg Hardy, the guys he's fought have legitimate records underneath him, you know what I'm saying? So, but to give him a guy who's 1-1, and he looks like that. He doesn't look like an athlete. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say anything bad about him, but it's like the Jake Hager, who literally is a monster himself. So,
do you guys know what Jake Hager is known for in the WWE?
No, what's his thing?
He's known for, you know, the belt that Ric Flair used to wear, the big gold.
Yeah,
belt? Yeah. He's known for killing that belt because when they put it on him, it just meant nothing. So I don't know.
What do you mean by that? Because he wasn't worthy of it, or?
Yeah, he's referred to as the worst world champion in WWE history.
The only thing I remember Jack Swagger for is doing 100 push-ups in front of his dad or some shit.
Yeah, so he's whatever made him a star. He definitely had a legitimate amateur wrestling background, right? And he's physically imposing. He's a huge dude. the guy he's fighting, this TJ Jones, this bum off the street. It is it is nice that they're not treating him. I as far as I don't watch a lot of promotion for Bellator, but it doesn't seem like they're treating him like, oh, can Jake Hager overcome this impossible challenge? They know it is what it is. It's a 1-0 fighter. It's some bum, but it is also a chance for Jake Hager to start to build a highlight reel that they could show when they're promoting his fights. Eventually, they may find somebody for him that's interesting and compelling for him to fight. I think like he's at the tier where like, yes, he has some skills, but they'll never be like professional tier competing, challenging for a title. So have him. I mean, if we're trying to get, who's that YouTuber that talks all the time about wanting to fight?
Logan.
Yeah, Logan Paul,
Logan,
like something like that, right? Somebody who's a decent athlete, but also not at all a fighter, doesn't have real experience, who's a name. Like, if they could find something like that for him, then maybe I'll have some.
Nah, bro, put him in there with Ryan Bader.
No, yeah, exactly. No, don't do that. That would not be fun for anybody, but maybe Ryan Bader.
Yeah.
Not even the ref would enjoy that.
But yeah, I just, his whole thing is just going to take a lot for me to buy in. As somebody who's not a wrestling fan, I think for now it just seems like he's only going to be a draw for that crossover fan base, which is fine. That's a very large fan base. He's not, yeah.
That's what I was getting at. Nobody in the wrestling world cares about him.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know. It just, because, it seems like exactly what they're doing is just finding, like, kind of like, just grown adults like, wow, MMA sounds cool. Let me try that out. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, though, you think of that, yeah, Jack Swagger, Jake Hager, whatever the fuck you want to call him. He does have a wrestling background, but what honestly other than the fact that he's an athlete, what makes him different than the Joe Schmo that's just like, I'm going to try MMA out. You know what I'm saying? I think it's the same situation as the Greg Hardy thing. His career is going to last as long as the people who put the fights together wants it to last. You know what I'm saying? Greg Hardy, you throw him in there with a top guy, you hype train over. Jake Hager, you throw him in with a top guy, it's going to be over. You know what I'm saying? So I think they're just writing it out and trying to make as much money as they can.
I will say, I saw Hager's one fight, and I saw a couple of Greg Hardys. I think Greg Hardy has a lot higher legitimate ceiling. Whether or not he'll ever be able to hit it, who knows? But Hager did not look like
I agree with that,
best athlete out there, even though he does have the legitimate background. I think Greg Hardy is a little more imposing, a little more of a threat with his power and speed.
Yeah, Greg Hardy could pack a punch, man. Jesus. But so we got the semifinals of the welterweight Grand Prix. Douglas Lima is going up against MVP. Man, this could be a real barn burner of a fight, honestly. MVP is one of the most one of the most entertaining guys, right? Like, his celebration game is just on point. Douglas Lima is a former champion. What do you guys think about this fight?
I love it. It's my favorite fight of the tournament, honestly. Michael Page, he's so good on the feet that he made Paul Daly turn into a wrestler. Somebody who spent his entire career whining about wrestling started wrestling because of how dangerous Michael Venom Page is on the feet. And then Douglas Lima on the other side, he's my favorite to win the tournament. He's been fighting better than ever. We talked about we referred to Rory McDonald earlier in the podcast. He took Rory McDonald 5 rounds into hell. Rory only won that fight off of a takedown that he scored later in the round. He couldn't stand. I mean, Lima's kicks, Lima's punches, everything he does is vicious. It's terrifying. And he's a veteran of the sport. He's had 37 fights, whereas MVP's had 14 fights and only a couple of them against real opponents. Like, he's been nurtured and babied all the way up to this point, but they nurtured and babied him because they saw how high-end his talent potential is, what a star he could be for the sport. So I think this is the two best fighters in the tournament, and the matchup itself is perfect to see what they could do. I just can't wait.
It's safe to say the winner of this fight will probably take home the tournament.
There's a good chance.
I think that's safe.
Yeah, MVP is just a specimen, man. This dude is lengthy, and I mean, who do you like in this matchup? Robert, who do you like?
I'm not gonna lie, man. This is one of those toss-ups for me. It's Michael Venom Page, like Luber is saying. He's been kind of baby fed a little bit, kind of been given, the best matchups for him and stuff like that. But now this is it's another situation of like Israel. You know what I'm saying? How is he gonna do against the fucking killer? Because Douglas Lima is a killer. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to see the experience of Douglas Lima come out, and I think Douglas Lima is probably going to make the right decisions against MVP and to beat him. But it might just be another highlight knockout by MVP, honestly. But I'm going to pick Douglas Lima in this fight.
Yeah, I think I like MVP in this fight just because I think even if Lima can impose some wrestling, he's going to have a hard time doing it to win 3 rounds with it. And I don't think he's going to win any points on the feet against MVP just because the size, the lankiness that we talked about with Michael Venom Page, but also like he has that sort of like his understanding of distance and timing is such high level, so advanced that people don't even know like if they're making a mistake or not by approaching him. They assume that whatever they do, MVP's reading it because he probably is. I mean, he's that good. So I could see MVP freezing up Douglas Lima, making him second guess himself, and then landing something big. I think this is a very good fight for Michael Venom Page, and I think Douglas Lima, if he wins, like we said, he's going to win the tournament. I just think matchup-wise, it's a tough one for him because I don't know who can strike with MVP. I don't think anybody really, not in welterweight.
Yeah, not anybody in Bellator, right?
Yeah.
Right, but the big thing is like when he fought Paul Daly, you know what I'm saying? Paul Daly's not a wrestler and stuff.
Yeah.
But when they were grappling, it was very, very sloppy grappling. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if either you guys noticed that, but it was very sloppy. So I just want to see what happens when a real high-end grappler or someone who's even good at grappling gets a hold of him. That's what I'm kind of interested in seeing because there's a good chance that Douglas Lima grabs him and we just see MVP in a different world that he's really not used to yet.
Yeah.
Right, well,
yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about the main event. So Michael Chandler is defending his lightweight belt against the featherweight champion Patricio Pitbull. This has been called the biggest fight in Bellator history. Now we've seen that many times thrown around, but are you guys buying the hype? Do you think this could live up to that quote that it's going to be the biggest fight in Bellator history?
No. No, I mean, they're awesome fighters. I mean, Patricio Pitbull's been around forever. Michael Chandler's been around in Bellator forever. I think what they're saying is these are our stars, the guys that we have made into well-known names in the MMA community. And they are pretty well-known names in the MMA community. That's it, though. Nobody outside of the hardcores, which I, again, hate using that term.
I mean, do you think this could live up to it and be like a really good fight?
Well, I think it definitely has the potential of being a 5-round back-forth war, and if that's specifically what they're referring to, yeah, sure. I mean, it definitely, Chandler's been in some awesome wars. Pitbull's always down for that kind of fight. But I think that the back setting, the hype behind it is definitely what adds to these fights. I mean, if you go back to the Rory McDonald, Robbie Lawler 2 fight, the back-and-forth war, but one thing that added to that was that it was on a McGregor card where the fans are going crazy and they're packed. And everyone, millions of people at home are watching. The announcers know it when they're giving the commentary, so the hype is that much higher. I think that you almost need that, and I don't know if this event is big enough to be that kind of fight, but it's a very big card. I mean, even the AJ McKee, one of their biggest prospects, is fighting on it, and we don't even have time to talk about him today. So it's a huge fight, but I just don't think it's going to be like, holy crap, you can't miss this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it is in a good placement, coming right on the heels of a Canelo Alvarez fight. So a lot of people that subscribe to DAZN just to watch that Canelo Alvarez fight are still going to have their subscription active so they could catch it. But that's as good a timing as you could possibly get, I think, following up against Canelo. But we'll see how that translates.
Yeah, and honestly, I 100% agree with Luber. So ditto.
Yeah. So, are you guys ready to talk about UFC 237?
Oh, yes.
Pay-per-view week, let's do it.
Yeah, we're here, man. We're finally here, talking about the big pay-per-view. It's gonna be in Brazil, so you know what that means. All the heavy hitters are out for Brazil: Jose Aldo, Anderson Silva, Jessica Andrade, Thiago Alves. Man, where do we start? I guess we got to start with the main event. Rose Namajunas is defending her strawweight belt against Jessica Andrade. Now, we've seen Jessica Andrade get a title shot before, and it was against, Joanna. And Joanna did beat her, but then things changed once Rose knocked out Joanna. So, What do you think? This was the best fight that they could have made at the women's strawweight division?
I think so. I think this is the fight that I think everyone was looking at. Once Rose would fight someone other than Joanna. I mean, let's be honest. Like, Rose has beaten everybody else. So I think this is the fight that had to happen, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think especially coming off of Andrade's last fight, when she knocked out Carolina Kowalkiewicz, it sent a huge statement. I mean, the way she approached that fight was pretty scary the whole time. You're like, oh man, Carolina just getting out of the way of that one, just getting out of the way of that one. And then she didn't get out of the way, and you're like, yep, Andrade is a scary, scary, like 115-pound woman who can knock out people like that. Terrifying. So yeah, it brings a lot of interest into this title fight. And that's a good point that Legacy made, that this is a good chance for Rose Namajunas to start to build her own personal kind of story as champion, because right now it's very much defined by an upset win over Joanna, and then again, kind of an upset win again over Joanna. Yep. So now she can start to be the dominant champ who's not upsetting people. She's the one to beat. This is a pick 'em fight, though, so people aren't really buying into Rose quite yet.
Well, who do you like? Who do you guys like in this one? I mean, it's tough to call. I mean, Andrade, we've seen she's like a pit bull. She'll keep coming at you, and I'm curious to see how Rose will handle that type of pressure. But what do you guys think?
I think stats-wise and on paper, Jessica's the favorite. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's got very dangerous tools against Rose and stuff like that. But I think, honestly, this fight really depends on how Rose approaches it. That is what's going to define this fight. If she sits there and tries a brawl with Jessica, she can't fight Jessica the same way she fought Joanna. She can't not do that. But my pick is going to go to Rose, because I think a lot of this fight's going to have to do with just learning on the fly and changing your styles. But also heart, I think, is going to go into this. I think Rose has the heart to take the onslaught of Jessica. So I might be one of a few, but I think Rose is going to somehow pull off the win. I think it's going to be decision, though, honest. I don't think she's not knocking out Andrade.
Yeah, I mean, I could see, a head kick or something like that, but just, natural power. It seems unlikely that Rose knocks her out. I also am going to go with Rose Namajunas. I think the big thing for me is the length and Rose's ability and willingness to use her length. Like Legacy is saying, if she doesn't do that, if she decides to fight in a phone booth and trade punches, she may, honestly, her boxing's really, really good, and she does have decent power for a flyweight or strawweight, but yeah, not a good idea, and I think she loses that kind of fight, but I don't think she'll fight that kind of fight. I think she will frustrate Jessica Andrade. Andrade is going to get aggressive. Maybe Rose can use that to time up a takedown, something like that. Rose Namajunas' grappling is kind of amazing. She has some crazy flying submissions. I mean, Andrade also pretty on point with her grappling, but I think that I'd tilt Rose Namajunas in that area. So I think there's just a lot of ways that Rose can score points and pull ahead in this fight and maybe get a finish, but I also would expect a decision with.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be interesting, but like, I don't know. I don't even know how to approach this one. I was like, who do you think would be next? Is there anyone in the division that's prime that you've seen that's ready to make a run? I mean, Tatiana Suarez, Nina, Michelle Waterson. She's been on a roll. I mean, what do you guys think?
My eyes are on Michelle Waterson, honestly. She's only number 7 right now. She's still good. Say again?
Your eyes are on her booty or on her as a fighter?
She is a mother, sir. I'm going to stay respectful, all right? But no, just because she's been looking so good. I mean, I don't know I love Waterson, but I feel like she's kind of changed her game a little bit too. Of course, when she hits kind of the bigger ones, she kind of falls down a little bit. But, she beat Carolina. That is no easy feat, you know what I'm saying? So I think Michelle's one to watch for. Nina, and I think, honestly, Tatiana Suarez, any of those 3 girls I'm interested in seeing, you know what I'm saying? So, but it really depends on who wins this fight. Like, say if Jessica wins, that's a perfect opportunity to almost bring Joanna back in the mix. Just because how definitively Joanna beat Jessica the first time. But I think the top 7, you have potential matchups all up and down the board.
Yeah, I think the winner definitely is a big factor, especially Rose Namajunas and Michelle Waterson. That fight already happened, and Rose won it pretty definitively.
Yeah.
I would agree, though. I think Michelle Waterson's looked like the last couple fights like a maybe not a new fighter, but a much better fighter. She is kind of she's still employing her karate, but like in a way that's way more effective. I think for the modern mixed martial arts scene, and I think she has her management company. I think is WME. I think that, which always was weird to me because they're the ones who own the UFC. So I think there's a good chance she gets a title shot. But the other name that really jumps out to me is Tatiana Suarez. Yeah. Tatiana Suarez has been called the lady Khabib, the Khabib of women's strawweight. I mean, there's always a new Khabib in every division, right? Somebody who just imposes the wrestling game and dominates fighters. But Tatiana Suarez, that's something we don't see a lot in the women's divisions is that dominant wrestling, and she is very, very good at it. I think she might be the best fighter in the division right now, honestly. So I don't know if that means she'll get the title shot because that's always a lot of factors that go into that. But I think if they do, she's a huge threat. So I would love to see. I don't know if either of those fighters have fights booked right now. I was trying to look it up, but yeah, either one of them I would love to see challenge either the Andrade or Rose Namajunas. I would see the rematch of Waterson Namajunas. That'd be a great fight. So yeah, there's tons of options.
You think that would matter if Rose were to win? That the fact that Rose has a win over Waterson.
I don't know. I don't think it will matter, honestly. Just because on how much of a hype train Michelle is. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love UFC to death, but UFC is going to be like, more money. Where are we going with this? So it might be one of those other situations where Tatiana does deserve it, but Michelle is kind of a bigger name, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? So they might just give it to her because of that situation.
Right. Yeah. Then if Andrade wins, they'd love to get Joanna back in there just on her name power.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's one of those situations where any of these fighters too, like if they have a fight book, go out there, win in dominant fashion, get on the mic, say something exciting. Wait till Dana is on a cocaine high and decides to make a move. He's excited that Rose Namajunas is the champion and he wants Tatiana to fight her, something like, you know what I mean? Like you just got to get them excited. And they are very excitable if you can go out there and put on a good performance. So.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, that was funny. I just can't get over that Dana White line. Yeah, so let's talk about the co-main event. We got Jared Cannonier, and Anderson Silva. Are you guys? I know Luke and I talked about this prior, about Anderson Silva. But Robert, are you excited to see Anderson Silva in the octagon at this stage in his career?
No. Like, don't get me wrong. It's Anderson Silva. It's always gonna be. But at the same time, it's like.
But what did you say? You cut off there for a minute.
Like, it's Anderson Silva. Like, I love him just because of his name,
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like. It's just one of those things of like just me as a fan watching, as a hardcore fan. Again, I hate using that term, but as a hardcore fan, for me, it's like, dude, like you're on your downhill spill. It's like, I hope this is his last fight. I really do. Just because I don't want to see him get hurt no more. You know what I'm saying? Israel fight, he did all right. He did good, but his fights before that, it's like he got beat up good in the Michael Bisping fight, and everything like that. So it's like. Just go out with a golden shield, bro. You're gonna be remembered for greatness. Don't ruin it like BJ Penn is right now.
Oh,
yeah. Anderson had a tough fight against Derek Brunson that he won the decision. Very controversial. Yeah, and I mean, physically he looks pretty good, especially for his age. He's been pretty open about believing the UFC should allow steroid usage. He said that. I see. Again, we've made it. I don't know. We'll call this the second official steroid accusation. I think he's physically able to compete with most of the middleweight division, like even at his age. But the problem he's fighting Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier in his last fight looked like an absolute unit. I mean, just jacked, throwing huge bombs, and I just don't want to see Anderson Silva. Even though I've never been a huge fan of his, like I don't want to see him getting hit by Jared Cannonier, man. It is a terrifying prospect. So I get why he's on the card. We're in Brazil. He's a legend. And he did look good, but this is not a great fight for him in terms of like preserving his legacy. He's not going to get a lot of credit even if he does come away with a win. So, I mean, have him fight, old man Vitor or Dan Henderson. Those guys are retired now, but something like that. I don't want to see this, but I get it. It's about making Jared Cannonier a star, and this is a great opportunity for Jared. So I think it's a very close fight on the betting odds, but I think Cannonier is gonna make it look like it's not a close fight at all.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and so I think maybe we'll have a star out of it. So I get it, but I don't like it.
A star for who though? You know what I'm saying? For us, we're sitting like the hardcores. We're gosh, I think in this fight the UFC is really binding with the casual fans. Like honestly, I think that's what they're doing because we're cringing.
This might just be one for the house though, where it's like, oh, we're gonna give the Brazilian fans, one last time. One last goodbye to Anderson Silva, because he probably won't be around the next time they go to Brazil.
One interesting note before we move off that is I thought it was interesting after the fight got booked, Jared Cannonier, somebody asked him if you're going to take it easy on Anderson, like because he's a legend and everything, referencing the previous fight Anderson had against Israel Adesanya, where Izzy kind of laid off the gas at times and even said like, hey, put your hands up and defend yourself. I don't want to hit you with your hands down.
Right.
Jared Cannonier said no, he's not going to take it easy on him. So I think that mindset says a lot about what we can expect for the fight.
Yeah. And the thing is, Anderson also brought up, he said even if he loses, he's not done fighting. He doesn't want to be done with the UFC, which I hope he changes his mind. He might forget that he said that in this fight, so.
Hey, we all appreciate Anderson Silva and what he's done, but man, it's tough watching someone he's 44 years old, and he's not that far off in age from Yoel Romero, who a lot of people consider one of the best middleweights in the world. But I don't know. I guess it's just different, right? It's
fight years
different
are different
circumstances. Yeah, fight years. Just being punched in the face so many times, it changes this perspective a lot. And I was reading an article on ESPN, and they were saying they were pretty much saying that Silva should have walked away after the Israel fight because he was passing the torch to Israel. It was a guy that idolized him, and it was a big moment for Israel to be in there with Anderson Silva, but there really is no story here. This is a guy that's moving down from 205 in Jared Cannonier, and he's a relative newcomer, to a lot of people that don't pay attention to the sport, where Israel had a little bit of name value going into the fight. So I don't know. I guess it would have made a little bit more sense for him just to walk away after the Israel fight, but.
And I think that too, because that would have been perfect, bro. Passing the torch, walking away, thanks guys, did good. Israel's the new star. You know what I'm saying? When he lost to Israel, it was like, well, Israel's a dog. I think now, though, if he loses to Jared, it's like, oh, now Anderson's a bum. That's how a lot of people are going to look at it.
Yeah, but how much do they pay you to retire versus how much do they pay you to fight Jared Cannonier, right?
Oh, no, bro, I get you. Money talks. I 100% get that.
Exactly. And well, let's talk about Jose Aldo and Alexander Volkanovski. And are you guys looking forward to this one or what? Do you think this could be fight of the night on this card? Definitely has potential for it.
Oh, for sure. Go for it, Luber.
Yeah, this is my favorite fight on the card, and I think I'm almost. It could be the main event. Obviously, the title fights are always going to be the main event, but Jose Aldo also said he doesn't want to be a main eventer. He wants 3-round fights. I love this new 3-round Jose Aldo because we saw him gas in the Max Holloway fights. And yeah, anyone can gas in a Max against Max Holloway. His gas tank's going to go forever, but I think it allows Jose Aldo to fight the way he wants to fight, which is just throwing bombs, man, kicking as hard as he can, punching as hard as he can, as fast as he can. He's always been less about like the old Conor McGregor line, right when he knocked him out, timing beats speed, or timing beats power, whatever it is. You guys know it. Yeah. Timing is better than speed and power, but Jose always like, well, I'll just be faster and I'll hit harder then. That's his entire career has been built off of just doing it faster and harder, every technique. And I think what we see with Volkanovski, his opponent, is somebody who can take it, somebody who's in there to, eat a shot and give something back and wear his opponent down by gritty, really, really powerful wrestling and basically just being tougher and lasting longer than his opponent and hitting very hard as well. I just don't think that's going to work against Jose Aldo, but I want to see what happens when they try. I just want to see these two styles clash. I love it. I love everything about this fight.
No, I do too. It's Jose Aldo. I think a lot of us counted him out, after the McGregor fights and stuff like that, but then came back and beat Frankie Edgar again. You know what I'm saying? So it's Jose. It's hard for me to ever go against him. Like even when he fought McGregor, man, McGregor about to get this crap. You know what I'm saying? So this is going to be an interesting fight. I think the big deciding factor here is honestly going to be how much Alexander tries to implement the wrestling. Like, that's just my opinion on how he tries to approach this game. Like, don't get me wrong, Jose's got pretty dang good takedown defense. But at the same time, it's just to mix it up and kind of maybe catch Jose, because that's how Max got him with the pressure. And I think it's really going to depend also on how much Alexander's willing to move forward and pressure Jose and make him use his energy. But 3-round Jose Aldo, bro, that's going to be a flipping killer.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even – I'm going to go with Jose in this fight just because, like, when he fought Jeremy Stevens, I was like, okay, Jose's starting to kind of go downhill. And then a body shot that he threw ended Stevens. Like, so this is one of those fights where, for me, either fighter wins, I'm going to be happy. You know what I'm saying? Just because they're both dogs. But I'm going to go with Jose Aldo in this one just because of who he is and how many times he's proved people wrong. And also just a skill set. He's still a monster. He's still a beast. He's still one of the top fighters at the 145-pound division right now.
Yeah, I think the wrestling is pretty interesting, and one dynamic of it is we've seen, of course, Jose defending the double leg takedowns time and times again. His hips are great. Comes from that soccer background, and of course his natural athleticism. It's very hard to shoot a double leg on this guy and not get thrown across the cage because that's just where his explosive muscles are. He can turn those hips, sprawl, get them back. And it's led to finishing fights, that knee against Chad Mendes. But Volkanovski's not going to try to get in on the hips. He's going to try to clinch up, pressure him against the cage, use that kind of modern MMA grappling to wear him down, wear down that fast twitch explosive muscle. So, yeah, it is definitely a big threat and something Aldo will have to be able to account for, game plan against, whatever he needs to do to take care of it. Otherwise, he could lose the fight very quickly just by gassing himself out, struggling to get out of that powerful clinch Volkanovski's got.
And I just want to recap our predictions. So I think all three of us are in unison here with Jared Cannonier, right, over Anderson Silva.
Yep.
And you guys both picked Aldo, correct?
Yep.
Yeah,
I did.
Yep. And I'm picking Aldo as well. And then, so then you both picked Rose, or right? Yeah. So we're all in unison there. So
I'm ready to see all three of those fights go the other way.
Yep.
No, don't say that.
Yep.
My heart.
10 seconds into the Cannonier Silva fight, Silva's gonna kick him in the head. Just end it there.
You know what? I'll take it. If we get to see that, I'll take the mixed fight prediction.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But I think the Rose, Andrade, and Aldo Volkanovski fights are very close to call, and they could go either way. I wouldn't be surprised if either fighter were to get the win there. Let's jump down for a second to the prelims. BJ Penn is on this card. He's fighting Clay Guida. We were just talking about fighters that are past their prime, and now that we've seen the rather not so pleasant headlines that BJ Penn has been making recently. What do you guys make of this? It seems to not be getting half the backlash, or even like a fraction, like an eighth of the backlash that Greg Hardy gets when he's booked on a card. Why do you think it is that there's no backlash for a BJ Penn fight?
I think it's just because of the name, because of who he is. You know what I'm saying? It's just like Greg Hardy came from football where he was kind of a piece of shit there. You know what I'm saying? And then he comes over here and we're like the fuck? This guy's coming over here now? Fuck you. And I think BJ Penn is just kind of the same thing where it's different because we all loved BJ Penn. You know what I'm saying? And then like this happened. I think a lot of people are going like, it's BJ Penn. We love this guy. And they're just kind of pushing it under the rug. I think this happens a lot with people. I mean, look how, Conor McGregor didn't do something like that, but Conor McGregor does a lot of stupid crap, but this gets brushed under the rug. So I think this is one of those situations because BJ Penn does have name power, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think the situations are a lot different. I think that you don't want to lump in all domestic assaults and be like, well, this guy got treated this way, this guy got treated that way. Greg Hardy beat the shit out of that woman, and we don't know exactly what BJ Penn did. It just referred to that general assaults, I think. And you don't want to forgive that by any means. I mean, it's a shitty behavior, but I think that you don't see the victim bruised up and the stockpile of guns with BJ Penn. I mean, it was really shady stuff with Greg Hardy. BJ Penn is like, oh, this guy is actually a piece of shit. But I mean, he was also, we know now that he's been strung out on cocaine this whole time, and like, there's no surprise there. It's just he sounds like a bad person, but what he made his name in is fighting. He's not coming over to fighting based off his name, and part of what made Greg Hardy's name was the controversy, was the criminal activity or alleged criminal activity. I guess he got proven innocent in a court of law or whatever. But the we're seeing BJ Penn fight because of his career in fighting. We're seeing Greg Hardy fight because of his popularity, and part of that is the controversy. I also think BJ Penn, like Anderson Silva said at one point, he thought BJ Penn was the greatest fighter of all time. He's not just a fighter who's been on the roster. He was a legend, and there's a lot of name value there. And he's ruined it. He's definitely shat all over it by continuing his career and being not a good person. But at the end of the day, I think there's always going to be an organization that will let BJ Penn fight, and the UFC is kind of like, well, if someone's going to let him fight, it might as well be us. So they're milking it, I guess.
It makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, you say the whole thing where it's like Greg Hardy did beat his wife. I mean, BJ Penn, and this is crazy, but this isn't his first time doing something like this. You know what I'm saying? I feel like a lot of this stuff got brushed on the rug. This actually is not new. He's beat his wife and stuff like that. To the point where his wife was scared for his kids and stuff like that. He pulled a machete on a motherfucker. Like, he was threatening to kill somebody and was inches away from doing it. I think that's the reason being is because no one's talking about how much have you seen, when Greg Hardy got in trouble and then he came over to the UFC, like Luber is saying, it's because he got his name off of doing that shitty stuff. And UFC is posting all about it. The only thing I see getting posted by the UFC about the fucked up shit BJ Penn is doing is by funny MMA. That's it. You don't see MMA. Go ahead.
BJPenn.com isn't reporting nothing on it.
I was gonna bring that up too. The fact that BJ Penn has a big MMA news website. Like, I wonder how that plays into it.
Yeah. So I think it's just because I don't think the UFC wants to, or the MMA community in general wants to tarnish his name. Like, I did some reading. He's done some messed up shit. Like,
hey.
Yeah. I definitely lump in the machete incident with the recent news his wife came out with. It's all been within the last year or so. And he's been on this kind of it's actually getting pretty close to one of the more historic downfalls of a career. Not a lot of guys go through this many. There's a handful, but like I said, BJ Penn at one point considered one of the best ever, and he never really took training seriously, and I honestly think he still doesn't. He just kind of goes out there and collects a paycheck, and that's what he's trying to do against Clay Guida. I just don't care at this point. You know what I mean? If I miss that fight, I miss it. I'm not going to be too worried about it. Exactly. So it'll only last so long, I guess.
When was the last time that he won a fight? Like 2010?
It's been over 7-8 years.
Let me see if I can find
He's on the longest losing streak in UFC history.
Yeah, last time he won a fight, Matt Hughes, November 20th, 2010. Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
That's when Matt Hughes, his chin was completely shot, couldn't take a punch, and BJ got one on him. Then he had that draw with John Fitch it was a close fight, but he got the draw because he spent an entire round on John Fitch's back. He got a 10-8 round. Otherwise, he lost the next 2 rounds. So, it's not been a good run.
Yeah. No. I mean, I guess we're picking Clay Guida here in this one.
Oh, yeah.
He's a minus 700 favorite on Bovada. I think probably minus 600 in the Vegas odds or whatever. So yeah, I'll take Clay Guida, but I think the real winner is nobody.
Yeah,
no, I agree.
Just tough. It's tough to even talk about, man. Just.
I think the UFC at this point is just like, all right, Penn, we're done with you. Here's Guida, who's just going to come at you, throw hammers. So. Because I think that's what's going to happen. Guida's just going out there and going to fuck him up right away. And I think you honestly, because he's a star, and you would think as a star they would give him, easy fights. You know what I'm saying? Just because he wants to keep on fighting and stuff. They're not doing that. I think they're showing him the back door and saying get out.
I think they did try a little bit, give him winnable fights for a minute, and he just couldn't win. But. I mean, they were tougher fights for sure. I mean, they gave him that the third Frankie Edgar fight, and that was the beginning of just the pathetic BJ Penn run. I think it's a good opportunity for Clay Guida. He's having a little bit of a late career resurgence. He won a couple fights, lost his last one, but it's a good opportunity to get a solid win, and maybe something like a Diego Sanchez fight for the winner of this. We could have our nice distinguished gentlemen's league, the elderly league. I don't know.
I love
It's
it.
good for the fans to see these guys fighting, I guess, but it's not very consequential.
And are you guys interested in the Thiago Alves Laureano Staropoli fight? Laureano Staropoli is a relative newcomer. He had only one fight in the UFC. And is native of Argentina back in the Magni Ponzinibbio card. Do you know anything about him? Either of you guys know much about him?
No, I didn't realize he was an Argentinian fighter. I've the Ponzinibbio you mentioned. He gets a lot of hype. Anybody I ever interact with on Twitch or what have you from Argentina is all about Ponzinibbio. I think the sport could take off there. So it's cool to see an upcoming prospect. What really interests me about the fight is Thiago Alves. I found myself super happy for Thiago Alves getting a win in his last fight. There's something about him. I mean, he's definitely one of the roid babies of the sport. Was one of the most obvious guys back in the day. Did test positive, had a long layoff, came back and kind of struggled, but got a really good win in his last fight. Now he's fighting in Brazil, where he doesn't live there anymore, but he's been such a big star in the UFC for so long. All the Brazilian fans know him. They see him as one of their own. And then he's fighting an Argentinian in Brazil. So there's a lot of local interest in the fight. I'm super excited to see how it plays out.
The crowd will be ruckus for that one for sure. A Brazilian against an Argentinian. Man, the crowd will be going bonkers for that one. Yeah, so what other fights on the card are you guys looking forward to? Is there any prospect fights? Anyone on the rise that you think that we should discuss or talk about?
One thing I will say, Little Nog is back. Little Nog is back. I'm kind of excited for this fight just because of Little Nog. I could see this honestly being just Little Nog going out. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's just cool that he's back. Just seeing one of the Nog brothers in there again. Other than that, though, I got nothing much else to say other than just to highlight that.
Yeah, Little Nog, the younger brother of Big Nog, of course, Antonio Rogerio Nogueira. He is a slight underdog in that fight. I don't know anything about Ryan Spann, the guy he's fighting. I'm sure we'll get a nice little preview from the production team of the UFC, so maybe it'll be somebody to keep our eyes on. It's always cool to see fresh blood at light heavyweight, but I'm with Legacy. It's cool to see the veteran of the game. I mean, he's been known since his days before the UFC as the better boxer of the Nogueira brothers. The fight after that, Francisco Trinaldo against Carlos Diego Ferreira. Carlos Diego Ferreira had a lot of hype behind him at a certain point. He lost 2 straight fights, one by knockout to Dustin Poirier, and kind of lost a lot of that steam. But I think now we're seeing Poirier knocks out a lot of people. The guy's actually a really good lightweight fighter. So he has his last fight. He beat Husam Khabilov by decision. He has a couple finishes. He's been on he's a 4-fight win streak. He's on a tear. He has a chance here to kind of break into contender status very quickly in a division that it's very hard to break into contender status. And his opponent, Francisco Trinaldo, had an incredible win streak going. Kind of lost a couple. He lost to Kevin Lee, James Vick. So another guy who beats everybody he's supposed to, loses against the elite, but right there on the cusp. So it'll be interesting to see not only who wins, but how good they look and if they can impress us and really get a bigger fight going forward.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I hate it because Lubric is saying exactly what I want to say. So, but I mean, that's a perfect way to look at it. I think this is going to be an entertaining fight. It's going to be a pivotal point for both fighters, and that's what I'm looking for, to see who can kind of take it up on the edge and who starts moving back up in the division.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Before we move off it, I'm curious: are either of you a fan of Colby Covington? Legacy? I thought maybe you were. So you would be familiar with the name Warley Alves, then? Yes.
Yes.
The only guy to ever beat Colby Covington is fighting on the early prelims of this card. Warley Alves. He's a veteran of the game. He has a dirty guillotine. That's what he got Colby with. He's fighting Sergio Morai, who's also been on the rise lately in the UFC. Has had some very impressive performances. That's the second fight on the card, and I think that one's it's an absolute banger. It's a really good fight. So they're kicking it off with some heat. I think that's meant to be the one that wakes the fans up and gets them going.
Exactly, and I think if Alves wins that fight, man, I think we're going to start seeing the name pop off, because if he starts winning UFC fights, he's gonna be like, oh, this is the guy that beat Colby. Colby's a top tier welterweight. So I think if he wins, they're gonna definitely use that to his advantage. So I hate that you brought that up.
You're a Kobe fan? That's
I love
interesting.
Colby, bro. He's a walking meme, my dude. Do I prefer the old respectful Colby that used to exist? Yeah, but he's just a walking meme. I'm a wrestler, so I love his style. I love the fact that he grapples. So I just think he's funny, honestly.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the over the top entertainment too. I think it's hilarious. His stick. So yeah, Alva's actually been in there with Usman as well. I mean, he has a loss to Usman, but he's been in there with two of the top guys in the welterweight division. That's intriguing.
What was that fight with Usman though? What was the
I think
outcome
he
of
lost
that?
by decision, right?
Decision, yeah.
Yeah, decision. Ooh, went to a decision with Usman. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Kamaru Usman's only loss. Colby has a win over that guy. And then Colby's only loss. Kamaru Usman has a win over that guy. So looking ahead to that fight, I mean, there's going to be a lot of interesting things with that fight. Warley Alves is square in the middle of it.
Yes, sir. And this pay-per-view is only available on ESPN Plus. Like you said last week, Luke, please sponsor us, ESPN. Sign up now. Do it right now. $4.99 a month. You get $5 off the pay-per-view, and you can watch all the ESPN Plus fight nights. Hopefully, they make it a little bit easier for people to watch the fight. A lot of people are having technical difficulties last month. I saw that they were allowing you to buy the pay-per-view right from the ESPN app on your iPhone or iPad or whatever. It's kind of hard to believe that they didn't have that figured out before they went live,
Yeah, that really surprised me because, what I'm saying, you just look at EA Plus as a platform, it's so much better than like the Zone and all that other crap. You know what I'm saying? So it's like because I use ESPN Plus every day on my phone. When I'm driving to work, I put a fight on, and I'm watching it. Well, I'm not texting and driving, I'm listening. Right? I'm driving. But it's such a good app. So when they struggled with it, it really surprised me. It's not good when you have people like Joe Rogan and Brendan Schaub and those guys just literally destroying the app. That's not good for their name. So I just hope they get all the kinks out. But the fact that it was such a struggle on their first pay-per-view, I think really affected the buys as well. But I just hope they fix their shit.
Can you elaborate what was going on with Joe Rogan? Was it during a fight companion they were talking shit about the app, or?
Oh no! So what was going on? People were trying to buy it off off phones, off their TV and stuff like that using the app, but it wasn't working. So people were forced to get on a computer or a laptop, buy it that way, try to stream it to their TV, make that happen. How many people, I have a computer, of course. Not a lot of people have computers to be able to do that, though. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they couldn't buy it that way. So it's just the fact of and a lot of people, they get to that point and they're sitting there like, I'm not going to go through all this. I got these other options of watching. I'm just going to do it that way.
And Joe was complaining about it on Fight Companion or something like that?
Well, yes, he talked about, because I believe right after that fight card, he did have a broadcast with Brendan Schaub, and they're both just sitting there trashing it.
Yeah. It is. I agree that I think it is functionally a little bit better than any other app I used. I don't use the mobile app, but just in general, their structure is very well set up. I mean, they're ESPN. They're a huge organization owned by Disney and everything. I mean, the biggest resource pool they could have. And any kind of slip-ups, it's like, what are you guys doing? Like, is this the Reebok fiasco all over where the UFC signs on with another company and they drop the ball completely? We've had some production issues with the ESPN, but I mean, overall, I've been really happy with what ESPN has done, but I don't know if we've mentioned it yet on the show. One of you guys brought up the total sales in pay-per-view for the last pay-per-view. It surprised me.
Oh, yeah. It was like 85. It was below 100,000, which for a pay-per-view, we haven't seen that in a while. You know what I'm saying? Especially for such a hype fights. Like, I was sitting there, I knew there was going to be lower buys because of the ESPN issues, but I was sitting there, I'm like, this is still going to at least get 150,000. That's about average now, you would say. So, but when it got below 100,000, it's about 85. That does not look good. That hurts. But, again, like we were talking about, UFC doesn't care. They're getting a flat rate and calling it good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those people that are looking on DirecTV and they're like, oh, UFC is not available. Okay, I guess I won't watch it then. Whatever.
Exactly.
Not gonna go out of my way, right? Like, not gonna go out of my way to download some app that doesn't even work. Yeah, it was unfortunate.
Yeah, they're going to change it. Like, there's no way they're not going to change this. You know, it's one thing to have one paywall, but to have two paywalls to go through, I mean, that's, you know, a lot of people are going to look at that and go, I'm not going to pay for this just so I can pay for that. So I think one thing, either if they're, I hope if they're not stupid, they're going to change the way it works and maybe add more options to able to get the pay-per-view.
Yeah, you said you had some problems with the zone. What kind of problems did you have?
Just for me with the interface and stuff, it's so could be just because of me.
So what did you say? You cut off again.
My apologies. So it's just the interface is so glitchy for me. It just could be me, but I know I have other friends who also complain about it. It's just clunky. I'll be sitting there, I click on to watch a fight or something. Like I try to watch the Canelo fight, right? And I'm sitting there and I clicked it and it sat there for 20 minutes. And it sat on the homepage. I reset my phone, everything, plugged it in, and then it came up saying like the Zone app not working or something like that. So
on what device were you watching it
on? I was trying to get up on my phone because I was at work.
Oh yeah, I've had trouble with the phone app too.
But you know, my it's not an issue with internet because my place of work has amazing internet. So it was just the fact that the mobile app was not really working very well.
It's 2019, guys. Get your shit together.
Yeah,
DAZN, ESPN Plus. Let's go.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. DAZN on PC and even on my TV, it's good to go.
It's great.
But it's just, you know, mobile apps. It's struggling. You know, which I get it. But at the same time, you know, this is how a lot of people watch their stuff now is on their phones.
Just carry around an iPad, bro.
Oh, there you go.
That'll solve the problem for everything. Just carry around a big ass iPad.
Golly.
Alright, so we got anything else you guys want to add? Oh, we got Stipe and DC. Stipe DC 2 has been officially confirmed for the was it 241 in Anaheim coming up in August.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready?
Oh yeah, I'm ready for that. I think it's gonna be a good fight. Again, it's just kind of the same thing that I guess that we voiced last week because you know we kind of dove into this fight last week. I think it's just going to be a thing of like if Stipe can really change his game and go differently at Daniel Cormier. I don't think Stipe is smart. He's a smart fighter. I don't think he's going to fight Daniel Cormier the same way. He's not going to make the same mistakes. I mean, honestly, if we're being honest, he's probably trained the last year and a half for this fight, plus the camp he's about to get. So that's the only reason I'm interested in the fight is because of that. And this also, to me, shows a little bit about the Brock Lesnar fiasco. The fact because, you know, there was talks about Stipe and Cormier happening, but then people brought all these things about Brock Lesnar, you know, with this, and then right away it seemed like, okay, we need to announce this now. That's the way I took it. So it almost seems like Brock Lesnar not even in the picture anymore. You know, last week I was like, oh, he might be just waiting in the background and stuff, but the fact that they got it out so quickly after everyone started complaining or everyone started to be like, oh, Brock Lesnar's still here, it seemed like they pushed it out right away, and Brock Lesnar hasn't even been a word yet. So I think this might be a way. I think this now overshadows Brock Lesnar, and they try and get him out of the picture here.
Yeah, I think that this is a nail in the coffin of Brock Lesnar's MMA career. I think that if he was coming back, it would only be to fight for the belt, and I don't think there was going to be a better opportunity other than maybe John Jones and Brock Lesnar. That could have happened, and maybe that still will happen. Who knows? But it seems like something has happened right behind the scenes. Either the negotiations got so just like definitively where they didn't meet anywhere near each other, or Brock tested positive for something, or he made a deal with who knows. I don't think that fight's happening.
He's back on the horse urine.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So yeah, I think that this fight itself is going to be nice because it's going to restore some order to the heavyweight division. We can start seeing more title defenses. I mean, Cormier did do a good job of defending the title right away, but it was against Derek Lewis when Stipe was there, and it just seemed like a. As much as I think Daniel Cormier is deserving of the belt, he definitely is, and he is a great champion in terms of the skill set he brings. He's definitely out there to put on big fights and make money, and I just want to see the UFC have maybe a little more leverage in saying, like, this is the fight we want, not the fight that you want. Right. So win or lose, I'm just glad this fight's happening, And then after that, I think either DC will retire or he'll get another fight real quick and not drag it out like this Lesnar thing. I think we'll get some sanity to the heavyweight division. So one division at a time. They're all starting to come together, I think.
Yeah, and that my thing is that DC, he said he has 2 more fights. He has a Stipe fight and the John Jones trilogy. And he, because Stipe, of course DC is confident he's going to win this fight. But it seems like that's what he wants next. He wants that John Jones trilogy. Not at heavyweight, though. He wants it at 205, which I don't want to see again.
No, nobody does. I don't think anybody wants to see that.
Like, even at heavyweight, that might add a little resurgence, but John Jones at heavyweight is a scary thought. Like,
yeah, seriously.
Yeah, I think the heavyweight fight, even the matchup, even if it's the same exact matchup, at least we get to see John Jones at heavyweight, right? And that adds a certain level of intrigue. And it is. I mean, DC looks like he is carrying a lot more power in his hands at heavyweight. It's never lost at heavyweight. So, yeah, I'll buy the John Jones trilogy fight at heavyweight. But yeah, I'm with you. Not at light heavyweight.
Exactly.
I get it.
And I think the big reason why I'm turned off to is this, because the way he's approaching it. Like, I love DC. I love DC 10 times more than I love John Jones. But he's approaching it. He's approaching it as if like he still hates the guy. You know what I'm saying? I get it. You got beat twice, bro. One by pretty definitive decision. One time he got knocked out. Is my door moving? Okay, I'm haunted. Okay. So my thing is, if he went into the fight more of like, I respect John Jones now. He beat me. I don't like him, but I respect him. I just want to get this back because I'm a competitor. I think I'd look at the fight differently instead of I hate this kid. I want to kill this kid. Like, we've seen you do this twice, man. It didn't work. Like, change your attitude, maybe. Respect John. I hate John Jones, but I respect him for what he's done and what he is. Like, I just want to see DC to acknowledge his accomplishments, honestly.
Yeah, if he's going to be the honest, the fighter that we can relate to, he's got to have a sense of reality, right? And yes. I think the reality is right now that John Jones is up 2-0 it's not a rivalry if it's 2-0, right? That's DC's quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to see him act like a normal human being because that's what makes him Daniel Cormier. That's what makes him so lovable as the dad of the MMA community is he's down to earth. So, yeah, it is a little out of character for him to be acting that way.
Yeah, so UFC 241 also had another fight added to the card as well. Yoel Romero and Paulo Costa has been rebooked for the 4th time in about 10 months, roughly. Are we finally going to see it happen, or, is Paulo going to be suspended again, or, Yoel's going to get injured, or get sick or whatever? Do you think we'll actually get to see this fight this time?
I hope so. I'm done getting teased. This is getting as bad as Tony and flipping Khabib. Like, I just hope it happens. I think it's going to happen. I think it's to the point where, because I don't think the UFC would keep on putting on this fight unless they thought it was going to happen. So I just hope it's going to happen. That's all I think it is. And, but we won't know until we get out, like until the day of, or even when they walk into the octagon. I'm not going to put 100% that's going to happen.
Yeah. The Tony Ferguson Khabib fight is the one that came to mind for me. Even the song, very popular video, How Long Must I Wait by the Bee Gees. The promotion video for that fight, the Ferguson Khabib fight, that played in my head immediately when you brought this fight up. Because it's how long must we wait for this fight to go down? The shit talking is picking up between them. It's getting awfully personal. I love that they're both making steroid accusations. Like, come on,
awesome.
guys.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows what's going on. You don't have to act like you're the good one and he's the steroid abuser. And I love that the two most likely users of performance-enhancing drugs are fighting each other, sparing maybe like Anderson Silva or somebody like who obviously has done it before too, but like at least we're having these guys fighting each other, and I feel bad for anybody who has to fight Yoel. I feel bad for anyone who has to fight Paulo Costa, and I am so hyped for these two to fight each other. Stylistically too, the matchup is super intriguing because you have the 40-something-year-old plus guy with crazy knockout power and amazing wrestling against the 20-something who's just a pure striker. I mean, you don't know what to expect, and it is probably going to be awesome. So, yeah, I'm super hyped for it. Let's see it.
Yeah, I almost forgot to bring this up, but I think we have to, man. That highlight reel KO from Bellator Birmingham, I believe it was last weekend, from Raymond Daniels. And not only was the KO impressive, I mean, did you see that body kick? I mean, he kicked his opponent like all the way across the octagon right before that massive knockout. It was just incredible.
Raymond Daniels is a legend in the sport, and it's one of those weird things where he's a legend in the sport, and he has been for so long, you forget that he could still do stuff like this. I didn't, I see that he's fighting, I'm like, oh yeah, Raymond Daniels, he's the guy who has some of those spinning knockouts and stuff. He's really good. And then he does something like this, and you're like, I needed to watch that. Why did I not watch that? That was amazing. And the highlight, I watched it 50 times over. He does a 720, and then he throws just a huge looping right hand, connects clean. It's one of the favorite knockouts I've ever seen. I mean, forget Barboza's knockout, forget the Showtime kick, which wasn't a knockout. This one, I mean, it might take the cake, man. It's the thing that I talked about where this sport is better than ever. And yes, Raymond Daniels brings these skills from a different sport, but we are seeing more and more craziness, and it's effective and it's working. And I don't even know what the limits of this sport are. We're not even touching it. We're not scraping against it yet. And Raymond Daniels proved that.
My favorite part about it was, it's similar to a bat flip in baseball. After Raymond Daniels knocks him the fuck out, he just walks away. Just like, he turns around, just turns his back to him. It's just like, yeah, I knocked you out, bro.
The walkout send a statement. Mark Hunt built a career on it, right?
Yeah,
definitely. You knock him out, you walk away, everyone goes nuts.
And then one awkward time you walk away and the dude stands up.
Yeah.
It was definitely one of those highlights, though. When I first watched it, I was like, what the fuck did he just hit him with? Like, because it was so quick,
Yeah.
Like, I had to rewatch that, and I was like, holy shit, that was a fist. It's like what Luber was saying. It's like, these guys are doing crazy crap we've never seen before, and it's working. And I think we're just going to see more and more of that. Because, as MMA grows, we're going to see athletic people get into it. We're going to see, different parts of the sport, if it be wrestling, kickboxing, Muay Thai, those are also going to grow and also get better as a practitioner itself. So I think we're going to start each category start to develop more and more.
Yeah, I can't speak necessarily to kickboxing or Muay Thai, but I would imagine it's like jiu-jitsu, in which the population of people who do it has just exploded exponentially. I mean, the amount of people doing jiu-jitsu 15 years ago compared to now it's a small fraction. I mean, it's crazy. Gyms are loaded. You can go to gyms and see classes of 50 people rolling doing jiu-jitsu, and they're starting at age, 8 years old, 14 years old. They're already they know everything. They're black belt level, what it would have been 10 years ago. Like, it is insane, and it's just going to keep getting better, man. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. Jeez, crazy. Let me see. Is there any other news stories that we had going on? Rumble Johnson's found himself in some trouble, man. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, he has a little bit of a history with there's a yoga mat incident. He had a couple domestic or anger related towards women, I think specifically. So
yep.
You hate to see it. Hopefully he learns his lesson and our judicial system works and everything's better and there's never is an issue again, but we'll see.
I doubt that, honestly.
Does this kind of stuff taint his legacy as an MMA fighter?
I mean, I love Rumble Johnson, but he seemed like, for a lot of people when they look at his career, he seemed like the guy that was always that close.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it's going to taint it much because he did leave a legacy, but he's not leaving a legacy like John Jones or DC or someone else like that. So I think people are just going to more look at it more what it is instead of his name. So
yeah, he's not losing a Nike sponsorship over this.
Exactly.
The consequences aren't that severe. He always kind of was regarded as this kind of nice guy. He always humble. Sometimes they called him Humble Johnson because he's always polite to the other fighters. But I think that it was also kind of known that he had this anger issue and he maybe wasn't the best person all the time behind the scenes. And who knows, maybe it's a drinking thing for him. There's a lot. You just hope that he learns and doesn't do this, and you hope that there's people around him that can, because he is. Forget being a superstar. There are kids who know about him, and even if it's not like, oh, a kid sees he does this kind of behavior, now a kid's going to do that. It does kind of normalize it almost a little bit. And that's one of the big reasons you see organizations like the NFL do so much outreach and try to help athletes who maybe grew up in situations where this was part of their daily lives, you know, domestic violence and things of that nature. Try to show them that, like, the world's moved on. We're better as a species than that. We're not, this isn't acceptable behavior. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I hate seeing that kind of stuff, but well, I don't want to end it on a sour note. So, is there anything positive that we got going on that we could talk about?
I got a story. Story. Back in the day, no. So Khabib, he gave his MMA plan for the rest of his UFC career. He wants 3 more fights.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, Dustin Poirier.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, I swear to goodness if it's not. But obviously Dustin Poirier, somebody else, and then he wants GSP. That is the 3 fights he wants left, and he said he's done. So, you know, Dustin Poirier, of course, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, he said he's done after those 3 fights, like he's retiring?
He said he's done.
Wow.
Yeah. So
crazy.
it's like, it is, do I believe it? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? How many fighters have said they're going to quit after something? You know, but it is Khabib. He doesn't care, you know. So my biggest thing is, like, who's going to be his second fight? Like, who's going to be the second fight?
Ferguson.
Of course.
No, it's going to be Conor. It's going to be Conor.
I hope
If he beats Poirier, I think he fights Conor.
Yeah.
If he beats
Conor's got to get a win first, but that was my guess. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's, I hope it's not Conor though. I hope it's either Cowboy or Tony. But then he wants to fight GSP, which I would love more than anything to see that fight, because GSP's even said, "Give me the Khabib fight, and I'll come back in a heartbeat." But I think the issue there is probably the same thing with Brock Lesnar. This negotiation, because, you know, they're probably asking for money, but UFC is like, well, I'm getting this money no matter what. Why am I going to give you a crap load of money if no matter how pay-per-view buys there is? I'm just going to get this. So I think that's going to be the only deciding factor. I hope they get their shit together and make that happen, because for the fans, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah. So one of the big things you said there is that Khabib, like you said, a lot of fighters will say they're about to retire, but now they're making more money than ever before, so they're going to eke out a few extra fights because they're getting these big paychecks, or, you know, their career is doing something that maybe they didn't expect when they originally said that. Cormier comes to mind with that. He had said, I'm only going to fight until I'm 40, and now he's, I'll fight a few more. Khabib has said multiple times that he's planning on retiring, you know, within a few fights, and he has a long career, even though he's not the oldest guy, he has a long career in combat sports in general, and with the wrestling injuries, his body has, you know, maybe not his brain, but the rest of his body has been beat up. I mean, he's training at AKA. Those guys do not go easy on the tendons or limbs there. So, yeah, I could see him retiring. But I also, the idea that his personality is such that he won't care about the money, I don't really buy that. I think he is going to be encouraged to extend his career as long as it's profitable, to the point where it makes sense. And the more fights he has, the more money that he'll need to keep going, right? So I could see the GSP fight down the line. I think GSP was definitely looking at fighting McGregor or Khabib when he was talking about coming back. Even before the Bisping thing happened, I think he wanted to fight Conor. So I think that's how you get GSP back into the fold. I think the Tony Ferguson fight is definitely one of the potential fights. I think Tony needs another win, McGregor needs another win, and maybe even Cerrone needs another win before any of those guys get to fight. But we just got to get one fight and go from there, right? Because even getting one fight from Khabib right now seems like it might be a little bit of difficulty. But I fully expect him to fight in the fall, September or October.
Oh, yeah.
Supposedly it's going to happen in September, since, you know, they're going to Abu Dhabi. It hasn't been confirmed, but that is the planned headline, to have Poirier and Khabib. You know, Khabib is gonna maul him like he does everybody else. So
right.
But we got to see that one on paper first, right, before we can even speculate. Who knows? The lightweight division is such a mess.
Exactly. I mean,
that doesn't mean we're not going to speculate wildly every chance we get, but
yeah, of course. Yeah.
I mean, it's like with the whole Colby Covington thing, that he had the interim title and they didn't give a shit about. You know, in this position, it's so easy for me to be like, oh, they're just going to stick Tony in there, they're going to stick Conor in there, and just say fuck Dustin, you know. So I'm on, like, same thing with what you were saying, bro. I'm not going to believe any fight predictions or fight what's going to happen until it actually gets announced.
Yeah. I mean, and Tony Ferguson was a guy who had the interim belt stripped just the same way. So, if he were to do that to Dustin, I think if anybody has justification to jump the line, it'd be Tony. I just don't see it happening. But yeah, I mean, I would be okay with that fight as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Habib too, Kayla Harrison said that she would beat Habib in a judo match.
Oh man.
I don't really know. I don't even know what to make of that. Like that it sounds silly. Just the idea that that's even like a headline, on a website. But
it could be Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match. Floyd will beat Conor McGregor in an MMA match. Everyone likes to say these things. It's a good headline.
Oh yeah, it sounds like the exact same thing. Ronda Rousey was like, "Box Floyd," and I was like, I don't know. Like,
meanwhile, Joe Rogan's like, you know what? Maybe she does have good power in her movement.
Well, if they just take their gloves off, it'll be a fight, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Rogan's a funny guy, man. Did he really say that? He really said that about Ronda, though?
Oh, yeah. He
said she could beat him in an MMA fight, I think.
Okay. I mean, she might. Like, who knows? The
jiu-jitsu, right? But I mean, I feel like all he'd have to do is hit her.
Hit her one time and it's over. Oh, it's tough, man. Yeah.
We'll never know.
Exactly.
I don't know. I want to ask a wild question, but I don't want to spark a little 10-minute conversation. But I don't know. I'll just do it anyway.
No, you got it.
Yeah, I got to. Do you guys think we'll ever get to a place where it's a big thing in pro wrestling now, but do you think we'll ever get to a place in MMA where we'll see intergender fights? Do you think it'll ever get there? It's like maybe some renegade organization, obviously not the UFC or Bellator, but maybe some renegade organization that's like, we're gonna put 155 women against 155 men and just do it.
I saw in Russia they were trying to put together a card like that. They didn't have the fighters lined up yet. They're putting out promos like, hey, if you're interested in this, I think there was a couple former UFC fighters, like guys who had fought once, way back in the day, like no-namers, but still like people in the sport that were showing interest in it. I think you could do it because you can find women who could beat the crap out of certain guys, right? You could find trained women to fight untrained guys and have competitive fights, but I don't want to see it. It doesn't interest me because it's a fiction then at that point. You're just picking out fights that the genders like are evenly matched. And we already know best of the best. It's just the way it is genetically. Like the men have a huge advantage. You go back to like tennis, a non-contact sport, men against women. Like the number 75 ranked guy beat the women's champion off of like a night of binge drinking and smoking cigarettes. Like it's just not a lot of competition at the highest levels of athleticism. So an organization might do it, but it's just a gimmick, and it's not going to be real talented fighters.
No, I agree with that. It made me really. What I thought about right away is like, think about if we put Henry Cejudo in there with you know what I'm saying, with Amanda Nunes.
With who your mic cut off.
I'm too far away. It made me think about what if we put Henry Nunes.
Yeah, you cut off again, bro.
Oh my gosh,
it's Henry Cejudo and Amanda Nunes. Yeah.
Yes, Henry Cejudo versus like Valentin or Amanda. Like we're gonna see. Like, I'm so sorry, but we're gonna see. I think they're both killers, but I think the fact is of how Cejudo is built, like as a man. And this is not against women, but as a man, we're gonna see like Cejudo like pretty much outmuscle them. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's what we're gonna see a lot. And also, not just that. Like if they put this thing together, and say they make a card, all the dudes beat the shit out of females. How's that gonna look? That's gonna look so bad. Like no one's gonna win in that situation. I mean, I feel like that's not a good idea. I just don't think it is.
Well, like the first question is like, how is it legal? Like are they going to be able to pull it off? Like with domestic violence and all this, like how are they going to get sanctioned in the United States at least?
Yeah. So the Athletic Commission handles what if a fight is deemed like competitively. If there's enough competitive integrity to bypass any kind, allow the fighters to contract themselves to unarmed combat. So it's like. You would think that any two people could just be like, hey, we agree to fight, we agree not to sue each other. But there's not, because that could lead to problematic things. That's why we have athletic commissions that give the okay on these things. Where would they stand on men versus women fighting? It'd probably take a lot to convince them. There is the loophole with the Indian casinos. in America, they do put on fights without having to get athletic commission approval. They have their own like internal approval system, and they're usually a lot more leeway there. But I just think it's too gimmicky. I think maybe like if it makes money, there's going to be someone who tries to do it, right? But I just don't think we're quite there on especially not on a major promotion like televised event. Maybe like some backwoods, like they're paying fighters $50 and they're seeing, can Shirley from down the street beat Marcus in the trailer park, and that kind of thing. But no, one interesting thing the Legacy brought up is that even if a guy were to win that, then it would just be like, oh, a guy beat up a girl. What's the benefit to that? I remember when I was wrestling back in the day and girls were getting into wrestling, which is kind of analogous to this. You do actually see a lot of co-ed wrestling, which is a pretty high end, and you see girls get a lot of success. So there is an argument like, oh, maybe women could compete with men. We should allow them the opportunity to try. I just don't think they would go very well, especially with the punching and everything at the highest level. But I think there are competitive scenarios. But like when I was a kid, my dad told me if you ever have to wrestle a girl, punch her in the nose so you get disqualified. Game over. God. Don't go through it because there is no winning. You lose to a girl or whatever. I just don't see that there a lot of appeal on a competitive level. On a freak show level, we'll see maybe some of that someday. But on a competitive level, I just don't think there's a lot going for the men versus women divisions.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll ever happen in MMA. Maybe one day in boxing. Who knows? But I don't know if I wouldn't be for it. It wouldn't be. It's just nobody wins. The fans, the promotion, nobody wins in a situation like that. It's just yeah.
I just cringe on thinking about it. Not gonna lie, because whoever does it, they're gonna be like, all right, kind of like bare knuckle boxing. Gonna be the next big thing, But it's never gonna get to that giant status that they want it to be. Just because people are gonna look at it for what it is, and it's like, this isn't right. This isn't it's not entertaining.
What kind of frustrates me about it is a lot of what being a champion is. People look at that as like, this is somebody who, yes, had physical talents that brought him here, but put in all this hard work and did everything and hopefully worked harder than their opponents, right, to reach the pinnacle that they're at. Saying that the women's champion can't beat like the whatever ranked man. If we had a fight to figure out where that would happen, where do they match up? It's kind of it's taking away something from the women's fighter who, like with her physiology, with the amount of testosterone and everything that your body develops with, she became the very best with her physiology as a woman. And to say like, oh, that doesn't really even compare to the average professional male fighter, like that's taking away all the work she put in, all the time and dedication, and just kind of being like, well, it doesn't even really measure up. But it's just a reality that men and women have different kind of genetic makeups, and it affects the way our bodies move and perform. So
exactly. Oh, and when I was saying that of Henry Cejudo, I didn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying? I know that's what he's commenting on. But
it wasn't. But
it's just like because I agreed with you. You know what I'm saying? It's like.
Oh, I should probably. Sorry, I should interject, bro. But when you do this on my screen, you're pointing at me. There you go.
I'm sorry, Luber's this way for me.
No, I know. I just realized that now.
Yeah, it's funny. It's the opposite for me. He was correctly pointing at me earlier.
Huh. That's weird. Huh. Okay. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're good. I mean, that's about it. Just because how we're made. It's like we have women's football versus men's football. Like, it's going to be two different sports.
I'm sure there'll be people that are like, but you're saying that a woman can't compete with a man?
Shut the fuck up.
Like, we could do anything. We could get in there. I could fight a heavyweight MMA fighter.
Yeah. There are dudes who think I've never trained MMA before, but I could go in there and I could beat up somebody. My mentality, bro, right? The old joke, the Joe Rogan, my mentality, bro, you don't even understand. I just black out and I'll knock them out. And so that exists. Of course it exists within, feminism and other things like that. People just don't understand. They don't have the perspective. Go in there and train and you'll see a lot of the differences in physiology between men and women. You'll see the difference between people with 6 months of training and 10 years of training. I mean, there's just different things that separate. There's a lot of levels of skill in combat sports, and one huge factor is strength and size, and that's always going to be a case. So,
yeah, that'll be on full display.
Cue of just me getting choked out by some woman and shit.
Oh golly!
I know a lot of men and women spar all the time in training.
Oh yeah.
But that's completely different. You're not going. Yeah. What do you think a fighter's going? Like 50% at a spar in a spar?
I mean, if that, you know what I'm saying? It's like sparring is not like what you see on.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong.
you cut off again, bro.
I hate this mic. Oh my gosh. Don't get me wrong. You do have sparring isn't like what you see on TV where you have two people in there trying to kill each other. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're going 50%, but maybe less. You just go in there like a lot of sparring is you throw a punch and it's like, oh, would have hit you there? Oh, would have got you there? Because you're trying to find holes in people's games. Don't get me wrong. You still have your live sparring where you're going hard and you're trying to work each other, but most sparring is just trying to figure out people's holes and make each other better. That's what sparring is. So it's not like when John Jones spars Holly Holm, John Jones ain't going in there throwing a fucking head kick to kill her.
Yeah, of course not.
So it's you know what I'm saying? That's not the same thing as in a fight trying to win a belt or something like that.
Yeah, there's a famous video that came out of Ronda Rousey rolling with Gegard Mousasi. Gegard Mousasi walks around at about 200 pounds. Like, it was very clear that there was nothing Ronda could do no matter how hard she tried. And Gegard was gentle with her, but he didn't even really get a workout out of it. He just kind of let her try some stuff and defended it. But yeah, I mean, you could get effective work, and like we said, levels of training, but it's just at the highest level, there's just not a lot of room there. But everywhere underneath, you can find ways to make it competitive and interesting. But I think that takes away from what we watch when we watch sports, right? We want to see competition to see who's the best, not hand-picked match. And that's been a theme of this whole thing. These hand-picked fights that really don't show us anything, and they're just about putting on a show. That's a reality of the sport, but it's undermining like kind of what we want as fans. We want real competition. We want true sport.
Yes, sir. I mean, bro, you didn't see Ronda Rousey throw around Triple H, bro? I mean, come on. Nah, just kidding. But one other thing, too. You're talking about Holly Holm and John Jones. Aaron Pico's going to be joining them over at Jackson Wink MMA.
Ooh. So
he's gonna be a future champion now, huh?
I mean, he's got a lot of good guys there to work with, you know. So I don't see how this is a negative for him. You know, I can see he's got John Jones, Holly Holm, and all those guys to work with. If he uses them correctly, we should see his game elevate. So,
yeah.
Has there been a prospect with more hype than Aaron Pico?
No.
No.
BJ Penn, maybe when he first broke through, but he was already like at the highest level when he was getting that hype. It was just kind of like, oh, can you believe how quick he got to this level? Aaron Pico like never even really reached the stars, and he was already treated like the Michael Jordan of MMA or the LeBron James of MMA.
Oh, that reminds me. Now that you say that, the Michael Jordan of MMA. Did you see that Greg Hardy said he's going to be the Michael Jordan of MMA?
No, I didn't see that. That's a silly comment, but
yeah, I had to blurt that out before I forgot.
Yeah. But as far as Pico switching camps, I'm not a huge fan of Jackson Wink. I think that the wink of Jackson Wink is pretty a weak link. It's sorry, I had to.
Clever.
Yeah. He's just kind of an egotistical dude. But what Aaron Pico's escaping is a ton of ego at AKA with Khabib's crew, the Dagestanis coming over. They apparently spar with a lot of attitude, and then you have DC. Luke Rockhold doesn't really train there that much anymore, but a lot of just tough-nosed wrestlers, and maybe the grind of AKA that it's so famous for was a lot for Pico, who's had some pretty significant injuries and probably doesn't need to take any more big shots to the head after getting knocked out twice, basically knocked out twice. So it might be a good move for the longevity of his career, and they are a professional camp. He will get the training he needs to continue improving. So interesting move. I like AKA more, but I can't even begin to say what's in the best interest of Aaron Pico.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys ready to get out of here? Anything else that we should throw out there? Or
I got
just ready for this call.
Yeah, I got one thing that Luber did throw in earlier. I don't know if it was before we start talking or during it. The speculation of versus Brian Ortega.
Yeah. What do you say? You cut off again.
Oh my gosh.
The
speculation between Zabit and Brian Ortega.
Oh yeah.
The fact that we could I don't know, we don't have to cover it, but I think this is a really interesting fight. I honestly don't like that fight for Brian. You know what I'm saying? Just because in the case now Brian's in a situation where one more loss could kind of ruin his hype and his name a little bit. And Zabit, he did look not the best versus Jeremy in my opinion, but I think this is a good fight for Zabit against Brian Ortega, who isn't the best striker, and Zabit has also very good grappling. So it's just going to be interesting on if this happens, how well it's going to play out for Brian.
Yeah, it's definitely a better fight in terms of the MMA stock market for Zabit. Because a win over Zabit, it's good for Ortega, very good for Ortega, but not nearly as good as it is devastating if he loses. Like you said, it's going to take all the shine off his name and put it all directly on Zabit, who's already the guy rivaling him for the young up and comer in the division if Max Holloway ever left it or fades off or anything like that. So yeah, I agree. It's not an ideal matchup for Brian Ortega, but I do like him in the fight. I think he actually could choke out Zabit. I think his submission game is maybe like he doesn't win every grappling exchange. He loses in scrambles or like can get dominated, but he has that finishing potential. It's just so scary. So I think it's going to be a 3-round fight. That's almost disappointing because I would love to see that as a 5-round fight. We got to see Zabit in a 5-round fight at some point because his cardio is a huge question. But I think, yeah, it's a super fun fight of two highly ranked young fighters. So I hope we get to see it.
Oh yeah.
If he knocks off Ortega, we'll seemingly see him in a 5-round fight. I would think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did we talk about the potential, like if Aldo were to get a win over Volkanovski, like would Aldo get another title shot? Like, is it realistic?
Not against Max Holloway.
Yeah, not against Holloway.
It really depends. Yeah, it really depends on what Max Holloway. If Aldo wins, Aldo's future is kind of in Holloway's hands. Because there's a lot of talk that Max Holloway just might keep on trucking at 155, and there's talk that he might go back down. So it just really depends on that. If his opponent wins, of course he's probably going to get the next title shot, if not the very close to. But if Aldo wins, it's really a coin flip because who else is there him to fight at 145 other than for the belt again?
Yeah, and how do you sell that? Like, how do you sell a third fight coming from a guy like Aldo who lost pretty definitively twice in a row to Max Holloway? It would be a tough sell.
I don't think you do. It's the same situation as DC versus Jones, in my opinion. Like, minus animosity because, Aldo and Max Holloway don't have any, but it's going to be tough to sell the exact same way. It's like, well, no, he lost twice. No reason to give him a third shot.
Yeah, those two wins were super definitive. Max Holloway was the clear winner. Really put a lot of damage on Jose Aldo in a way we haven't seen before. And, not a lot of interest in that rematch. The only way it happens, in my opinion, is if Jose Aldo not just wins this fight, but wins the next fight, wins the next fight, wins the next fight. You know what I mean? Just takes out every potential contender. At that point, people's minds might be like, okay, Jose Aldo has figured out something new at this point in his career, or this, or that, or whatever justification, and it'll have to emerge. It's just not there yet. And maybe Jose Aldo knocks out Volkanovski with a head kick in 13 seconds. And people are suddenly like, well, this, and Jose says something like, I've never trained harder. This is the best you'll ever see. Something like that. Then you could start to be like, okay, now there's a little bit of interest. I still think with the existence of Zabit and Ortega, especially since they're probably fighting each other, there's a way more clear contender. And it's going to take an absence of other contenders and an impressive performance for Jose Aldo to get another shot. And so it's a big ask for sure. So it's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, we can't forget Frankie Edgar in there as well, who's still trying to get that title fight that he never got with Holloway.
Oh yeah, and I hope that's a fight that Holloway comes back down to 145 for against Frankie Edgar. That would be a hell of a fight to go off a loss straight into Frankie. But I hope he gets that because I didn't bring it up last week, but the speculation was Zabit versus Frankie. That was what I was getting last week from news feeds and stuff. So. But I just hope, because honestly, if Max comes back down, how can you not give it to Frankie?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I completely forgot about Frankie. He doesn't fight very much these days. He's still very good, but his age eventually is going to be a factor, especially being a smaller guy. The speed is so important. He still looked as fast as ever in his last fight, but I think at some point you expect it to fall off. He does have that big loss to Ortega. But yeah, I would love to see Frankie fight somebody. Maybe not Jose Aldo, but somebody else in the top 5 before getting a title shot. But I guess timing-wise, maybe Frankie Holloway makes sense right away. That makes sense to me. So I wouldn't hate that fight.
And is Holloway going to be the same after taking all this damage? All that damage from Dustin Poirier. Like, are we going to see the same dominant figure that Max Holloway was at 145? I don't know. Poirier really put a whooping on him. Well, we'll see.
My biggest answer is I don't know. We don't know until we see it happen. So it's I don't know how to answer that. I mean, after that, fights like that change people. I mean, look how good Rory looked until after his second war of Robbie Lawler. You know what I'm saying? So we don't know we don't know until it actually happens again, because this could have changed Max mentally also. Like, because Max is on top of the world, and then in the first round is pretty definitively that Dustin is probably going to win the fight.
Yeah. People have been concerned about CTE type symptoms in Max Holloway. He had that fight where he dropped out and he was kind of slurring his speech. They thought maybe he had a recent concussion. And that's a big reason Ortega was given such a good chance to win that fight, in the fight that ended up being very one-sided. I think that at 145, Max Holloway takes punches a lot better. He's always been good at moving with them and kind of, rolling with punches, not eating directly. Poirier gave him some very clean shots. Jose Aldo had hit Holloway a little bit. Brian Ortega had a few clean shots land. So the damage is starting to add up for Max Holloway, but I do think he is somebody who has such a lanky frame. He's able to cut down to 145 and be significantly bigger than other people, and that means like a larger head size. And like that's something we do see play out, is like a heavyweight fighter with just a huge skull, big old Mexican skull is harder to knock out than the smaller fighters. So I think he eats punches very well at 145, and I think that I would expect that to continue, just until someday it doesn't. But I don't think we've really seen his chin fall off so much as we just seen a lot of damage start to matriculate. I still believe in Max at 145. I think what we saw with the Poirier fight is how important weight classes are. Poirier filling out at 155, really becoming a full-size 155er, was just too big, too much for Max. But at 145, that's Max all the time. He's the bigger guy, so I think he does fine there.
Yeah, there's nobody in the top 5 that I look at. I'm like, he even stands a chance against Max Holloway. Because we already seen what he did to Aldo, and we seen what he did to Ortega. So, just based off that, it's like, man, you can't count out Max Holloway in a 145 title fight. Just you can't.
It's hard
do
to
it.
vote against him.
Yeah, I am a little concerned about his mindset. He did seem to want to brawl with Poirier, and he had brawled with Jose Aldo very successfully. It made Jose Aldo gas himself, and he won the fight because of that. But I don't know if that's the best approach for Max Holloway. Like, when he fought Jeremy Stevens, for example, he stayed on the outside, picked him apart, won a very easy decision. Did the same thing to Ricardo Lamas up until the last 5 seconds of the fight. So hopefully he's not caught up in his own kind of mythos after those Aldo fights, because he's better at fighting on the outside than the inside, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. He's a volume striker. He's not a power puncher. You know what I'm saying? That's what he's known for. So I think it's interesting when he really ran out against Dustin, looked like he wanted to get in there and scrap with him. So I just hope that mindset changes. I think that was kind of a wake-up call of like, maybe I can't do this every time. I'm more worried mentally that, he just thinks he's not the same fighter. That's what I'm worried about. Because he looked fine afterwards, but we don't know what the background thoughts are saying in his head.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we got anything else, guys? Or
Yeah.
I know I said that like 4 times. We just keep going. So hey,
I think we knew, though. We knew there was a lot going on this week with the big pay-per-view, the Bellator. Yeah. We skipped a couple things. The PFL we kind of barely addressed, but yeah, no, that's all I got. I'm good.
I'm satisfied.
Cool. So plug away. What you got going on, Luke?
So pay-per-view this weekend. So that means we're doing the Fight Companion Saturday. Twitch.tv/LuberLibre. Come by, say hi.
And how are you watching the pay-per-view, bro?
Legally purchasing it like I do all my pay-per-views.
On ESPN Plus.
Oh, yeah, through the ESPN Plus. The convenience of having that set up and everything, it's just the best.
Now, hopefully we can actually order it on the app now.
Oh, God. I'll be perfect.
How about you, Legacy? What you got to plug?
So I'm just my Twitch. That's honestly. I'm twitch.tv. I don't know.
you cut off, bro.
Twitch.tv/unnoticed legacy. He plays UFC 3. He's one of the best in the world.
Thank you, Luke. Yeah, that's all we heard. All we heard was Twitch.tv.
No, great. Yeah, I'm not sure how I'm gonna be watching the fights yet but that's gonna be going on.
You'll be watching on ESPN Plus, bro. We're trying to get a sponsorship here.
Of course, bro. Always on ESPN Plus. The only way to watch the fights. So, yeah, that's about it.
Yep. So check out the podcast, wrestlingwithheat.podbean.com. Subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcasts. Hit up the YouTube channel and all that good stuff. Yeah, so till next week.
Peace.
I'm gonna kill my fucking mic. Fucking hey, that is the
Well,
worst.
it's weird 'cause it